Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have a quorum. Commissioner Higgins, Commissioner Preta, Commissioner Amin. We're waiting on Commissioner Costello, which I see her. Commissioner Costello. Okay, so we have a quorum and the meeting is going to 8 o'clock. Do we have the presenter for Hanover here?
I see them. Yes.
And who is that? Who's the presenter?
Dan Gordon.
Dan Gordon. Welcome, Dan Gordon. Okay. If you don't mind, I would like to kind of do this in bits and pieces so this is not so overwhelming. Can we start out with a presentation on the units first, and then we will get questions and concerns, and then you can go into the parking spaces, and then questions and concerns, and then the community benefit, the alley, questions and concerns, and then the community benefits, and then questions and concerns. Do you think you will be able to present?
Commissioner Carley?
Yes,
I'm sorry. This is Commissioner Higgins. Before we get started, can we get, just for all those that are on the line, the case number and then the date that the case number was issued?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Gordon, I'm sorry. So we're going to start out with the case number and when you actually receive that case number, the hearing date. So if you don't mind, we want to do the units first, and then we can how many minutes do you think you need to present on the units?
So just a quick question. We prepared like a 15-minute sort of overview presentation of the whole thing. Would you be open to us presenting the overview, or are you asking us, would you prefer that we not do that?
So you prepare to do the overview. Does it start out with the units and in the order that I mentioned, and maybe you can, give us an opportunity so that we're not interrupting you during your presentation?
It starts out it starts out with zoning, and then architecture, and then inclusionary zoning, and then some of the other concerns that we had been hearing were floating around within the community.
Okay, so you're going to start out with zoning.
The intent was just to provide a brief overview sort of upfront. I can move through it pretty quickly, or if you really would prefer we don't do it, then we'll skip it.
Well, whichever is going to make you feel comfortable.
Can we start out with that case, the case number and when it was issued, and with the hearing date before we start into the presentation?
Sure. So Christy Shaker with Honda Knight is with us. Christy, can you give us that information?
Absolutely. Good evening, and thank you for hearing us tonight. So the Zoning Commission case number is 22-04.
Sorry, Christy, what's your last name? I'm sorry, I'm not. I just see Christy.
SHIKER, and I'm with Holland and Knight.
Okay, Holland and Knight. Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the case number is case number 22-04. The case was filed on January 21st, 2022. And the notice of filing, which accepted the case and provided the notice to everyone about the case, was issued on January 27th, 2022. So that's when the case number was officially assigned. And the hearing date is scheduled for July 21st, 2022.
Okay, so you got a case number January 27th, 2022.
Correct. And the hearing is the 21st. The Zoning Commission considered the case for set down on March 31st, 2022, and voted to set it down for public hearing, and then assigned the hearing date of July 21st.
Okay. Thank you very much for that information. Any more questions, Fabio, about the case and the case number and when it was filed?
No, I just want to make sure we had that recorded for those that are coming on board, just in case they didn't have that information. Thank you.
So, Chair Carly, I do have a request. I don't know how feasible it is, but my request is for 5B04 is that everyone who addresses the board and the presenters and the community tonight, one, have their camera on and identify themselves. And I mean, if you can have your camera on, just let us know that you can't for whatever circumstances that may be. But we would like a identification.
Who is we, sir? Who is we?
Pardon me?
Who is we?
Me, Commissioner of 5B04, where this case is, and the community members and the advisory board of 5B04, Chair Carly.
You never identify who those the advisory board members are.
Well, they're here, and you'll have a chance to speak with them, so they're here.
Okay. Did you mention them in your resolution?
No, I did not mention them in the resolution. There was no need to mention them in the resolution, Chair.
If you're using them as a source that you gathered information or you mentioning them, they should.
Chair Carly, the advisory board is the most impacted. They're your 200 footers.
How many people? How many people?
I don't know how many of them are here, but I see them checking in.
How many
So
people?
are you, Chair? Are you saying that my request is denied? Are you saying?
No, what I'm saying is, if a person want to have their voice heard, they don't necessarily need to show their picture or have any recording on, because I mean they can literally voice an opinion and not be put on camera.
Well, here's the thing: we don't know who these people that are voicing opinions are. We've had this problem in the past.
You keep saying we. You're the ANC commissioner. You should.
We being the community. I have had several requests, Chair, about this in the past from full board meetings. So we being the community are very concerned about that. I mean, if someone has a reason why they can't have their camera on, maybe they're driving, we understand that. But this to listen to a bunch of people and we have no idea who's talking, we've had this problem as a board before. So this is my request.
I have a question. This is Commissioner Higgins. Is there, because this is an ANC 5B meeting, and the other commissioners that are on our board can weigh in, is there something in the ANC law that states when someone speaks that they have to have their camera on?
Well, I think virtual meetings, we don't have any precedent for that. But the other part is that
some people, the reason why I'm asking is because some people may be on their cellular devices, their telephones or what have you, and they may not be able to display their photo.
Well, that stands to reason, Vice Chair.
Whoa. I'm going to stop that right now. Commissioner, if you and the advisory board had a meeting with the community, and I think I asked you last week about that, and you were able to identify who those people were because I asked you who showed up at that meeting, you said, yes, you do have that annotated. If someone wants to say, and they should, if they're going to weigh in on something, they can say their name and their address or what street they live on. But I don't want this to turn into trying to put a I myself, when I go out in the community and people are a little concerned about developers showing up their door, I let them know they do not have to reveal their name. I know who they are, and I will literally just say, in this particular block, this is how many people decided either for something or against something. So I don't want to make this and scrutinize those people who may not, agree with this project. So
to Chair Higgins, to Vice Chair Higgins' point, a lot of community members cannot distinguish between your voice and her voice and Commissioner Patera's voice and Commissioner Costello's voice. So they're constantly inquiring who was that, and they're asking for, this is what they're asking for. Now, if you can deny that and it's on the record, that's fine too.
That's what I
Okay.
mean. When I have a project and if I have 200 and 300 footers, I'm knocking on their door and I'm getting some yeses and nos from them. I'm not going to sit up here and hold people and make them decide that they need to show their picture in order for y'all to know who lives where and what they look like. Let's move on, please.
Nobody, okay, well, this is not your project, and thank you, Chair. We have it on recording.
Denied.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you.
Gordon, would you please go ahead and do your presentation?
Hello, this is
Yeah.
Joe, but I'm on my phone. There's no way for me to, I don't have WebEx. I have Zoom, but not WebEx. So you won't be able to see my face. But I'm a Joe Bonet at 3004 20th Street Northeast.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I appreciate that. And I think that is if a person want to identify where they live and what street they live on, I think that's a very good idea. Mr. Gordon, would you like to start your presentation, please, before we run out of that hour and a half that we allotted?
Sure, absolutely no problem. And here's what we'll do. Just given that there's obviously some particular focuses that the ANC would like to address tonight, we'll move through the presentation very quickly. And candidly, I'll probably just handle the whole thing, and we'll just move through the slides, sort of rapid fire. And then if there are specific questions, we've got the development team is here with us, and we can come back and answer things in more detail. Brandon, can you go ahead and share the presentation deck? Okay, so we created a deck for the special meeting. Let's go to the next slide. This slide just outlines the total location of the project. It's obviously boundaried by Franklin Street to the north, the WMATA and CSX tracks to the west. Reed Street is bordering most of the project to the east, although Phase 2A does butt up against the 10th Street alley. Let's go to the next slide. So the future land use map didn't make the same recommendation for the entirety of the project. As you can see from the outline of the project on the map, part of the project was recommended for residential moderate density / PDR, and part was recommended for residential high density / PDR. Let's go to the next slide. Given those recommendations and given the pre-existing zoning of the site is PDR2, we recommended MU6A for the majority of the site. That's the portion that has the high density residential stripe, and MU4 for the northeast corner of the site, which is up against the 10th Street and Evart Street alleys. There is a very small portion of the site that is already zoned MU6B. And
Mr. Gordon, I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you can you please refrain from using acronyms so that everyone else will understand what you're saying?
I think MU stands for mixed use 4, and MU6A is mixed use zone 6A, and PDR is production, distribution, and repair zone 2.
Thank you.
And if I do that again, please let me know. And if I know what the acronym is, I'll absolutely, and I'll try to refrain from doing that. Okay, let's, so MU6B is, if you look at the map on the right, pretty much what all of the other residential projects in the immediate community had as their base zoning. Okay. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll come back to any of these slides, answer questions about any of these slides. So part of this project, which was negotiated even before Hanover came to the table, it was really a negotiation between the immediate community, Commissioner Amin, the BNCA president at the time, and perhaps the broader BNCA. was an alley closing and dedication. The alley closing is basically the areas striped in green. And then the dedication, what we are giving to the District of Columbia, is what's striped in yellow. They're materially similar. I think that the closing is a few hundred feet more than the dedication, but they're both in the neighborhood of 16,500 to call it 17,000 feet. So essentially, we're getting in that neighborhood of square footage by closing the alleys, and then we're giving back that square footage in yellow. Let's go to the next slide. Very briefly, to just speak to this site plan, our focus was to create a view shed at the intersection with Evarts, which was important to the immediate community, and to open up the buildings on the west side of the realignment of Reed Street toward the community to allow for light, air, and better integration with the street. And so you can see along the west side of Reed Street, we have these openings which allow for light, air, room to hit the street. And we can talk more about that when we get into the contextual renderings. You can also see that we've tried to take all of our loading off of Reed Street onto a private alley between the two buildings on the west side. So loading, parking, all of that happening in the one place. And then loading, parking access for the Phase 2A building are happening off that 10th Street alley. And then we're concentrating the makerspace and the other commercial space up on Franklin, and then in the southeast corner of the Phase 2B building. Let's keep going and go to the next slide. So just coming back to the point I was making before, a little bit of history on the site for those who may not be aware of it, and anybody who wants to correct this or feels I didn't say it quite the right way is welcome to. When the new comp plan was getting done, when the new FLUM was getting, future land use map element of the comp plan was getting done, there was an extended negotiation between the landowner, the community, and essentially really the council and OP. And the big focus was on what the neighborhood wanted and what the owner really wanted. And as we sat down to create our plan, we were very cognizant of the fact that we were siting buildings essentially adjacent to row homes. And so what you can see in our Phase 2A building is we stepped that building back from the row homes. And same thing with the 2B building, we opened courtyards facing Reed Street, again, to create that light and air and to make the building mesh better with the existing community. And then we honored the continuation of Evart Street and created a view shed there. With that, you can sort of see that as you move north and east across the development, the buildings start to fit better contextually with what is further east and further north. Let's skim through the rest of the architecturals. Just Brandon will sort of flick through them. This is a view looking southwest from Franklin. Let's go to the next slide. This is what the buildings will look like from the railroad track side. So you can see the WMATA tracks and the CSX tracks and the Franklin Street Bridge. Let's go to the next slide. This is a rendering of what the buildings will look like from Evart Street. So you can see our Phase 1 building with the white with the black hat. And then you can see a bridge connecting Phase 1 and Phase 2B, which we hope to have be some amenity. And then you can see some commercial space in that bottom right corner of the 2B building. Let's keep going. This is a closer look at Phase 1. You can see the amenity courtyard, the way the building opens up to the street. A lot of effort went into creating some, visually stunning some visually stunning facades, but a lot of thought at the same time went into how do we keep the building from sort of looming over the immediate community. And again, a focus was the location of the courtyards. Let's keep going. This is the 2A building. This building is the closest to the 200 footers. You have immediately to the right of and immediately to the left. So this is east and south of this building, row homes. This building and its density was the most heavily negotiated with the immediate community. We ended up agreeing on 4 stories at sort of the edge of the parcel with a substantial setback above that. Let's keep going. This is a view from Reed Street looking sort of northeast at the 2A building. Let's keep going. And this is the view looking northwest from the intersection of Reed and Evarts at the commercial space in the 2B building, and then the residential units above it. You can see the effort again that was made to highlight these courtyards, create openings toward Reed Street, and also that courtyard in particular, the southern courtyard, actually aligns pretty well with the Evart Street alley. Let's keep going. Again, you can sort of see here, this is looking at the 2B building from the north on Reed Street, the effort that was made to step back the facade from the street, create room, light, air. And again, that's us thinking about the local neighbors, the townhomes. But we are activating this section of Reed Street, and a lot of effort went into the location of the commercial space and thinking about what the right facade would be there. Let's keep going. Okay, this is housing. So feel free to tell me to stop at any point that's helpful. We, in our community benefits agreement, discussions with the Office of Planning, offered 15% of the residential GFA. That results in more than 83,000 square feet of net residential area for inclusionary zoning. We started with 15% all at 60% MFI. 60% MFI is the sort of district's starting point. I think it's median family income. I think that's what it stands for.
Correct. It's the same thing as we used to use for area median income. People might have heard of the term AMI. They
Yes,
changed
it
it to, of
replaced the
course,
AMI.
yes.
Yes, MFI replaced the MFI. The MFI replaced the AMFI about 4 years ago.
That's correct.
And so initially we suggested 15% of the residential area, 15% of the living space that we were creating, we said would be inclusionary zoning, and we said let's do all of it at 60% of the median family income, which is an affordability level. There was pushback on that in the immediate community. And I think at the BNCA level, and I think it also with Commissioner Amin. And so what we looked at is the same thing we did on our PUD, a planned unit development in 5E, which is we moved 5% of that area to 30% of median family income, 5% to 50% of median family income, and to even it out, move 10% up to 80% of median family income. And that
I have a question. I appreciate the fact that you do have 5% at 30% and 5% at 50%. But I do see that the bulk of yours is at the 60% MFI. And I'm curious as to why we couldn't increase the levels of the 30 and 50% MFI. And the reason that I'm asking is because that is the population in which we really need to house people. And I know Commissioner Amin stated that, you know, we can't take everybody, but I don't think that boosting both of those up at 10% and having the 60% at 70% would be a big hit. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we've started having conversations with DHCD about this. And it's sort of interesting. There are definitely people in 5B who have said, you know, they're not excited about the 60% median family income level. And that is not district policy, right? So when we're talking to the Office of Planning and the Department of Housing and I don't know what DHCD stands for. Let's call it
Department of Housing and Community Development.
See how, mhm.
the Department of
Housing
Housing and Community Development. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. So when we're talking to them, their starting point is they really 60% is where the conversation really starts. So if we were to do more 30s,
I disagree. No, I disagree because 50% is their starting point. 50%, 60%, and 80% are the IZ income affordability levels. 30% is more towards, you know, housing authority, vouchers, tax credit. But no, the starting point for IZ is not at 60%. The starting point for IZ is at 50%.
so if you'd like, we can pull up the code. The base requirement for rental apartments in the district is 60%.
Okay, so okay,
And
go
we can,
ahead. And I'm gonna pull up something for you, a price schedule for you as well in terms of renting. And so you go ahead, you pull up yours, and I'm going to share some information with you as well.
sure. And since I'll keep presenting, if somebody, Christy, perhaps you could find the code provisions that show that sort of the baseline requirement, the 8% and 10% are at that 60% MFI level. I think that would be helpful.
It's a baseline, but IZ has three affordability levels, and it starts at 50%. So my question to you was, not what the baseline was, but why can't you have more 50%? Even though that may be a baseline, but that's up to you as a developer to make the 50% MFI available. So
Yeah.
that's not a guideline for DHCD to say no, we don't want any 50%. They just state that that's a baseline. It's a difference.
You're right. There is a difference, and I think the simplest answer I can give you is if we were going to do more at 50, we would not have done 15% overall. And I think that the district policy right now, so we've really with our PUD, we've set a high watermark by coming in with an initial offer of 15% at 60 and then 15% overall. And so I think since then, maybe another PUD or two has done the same thing, but 15% is the high watermark for a market rate development. And if we were going to do more 30s and 50s, we wouldn't be doing 15% overall. We wouldn't have ended up in the same place. And I think that just in having these conversations with the Office of Planning and DHCD, I think they're very excited about the units at 60%. And that is why the zoning code starts there, that baseline. So this benefits package was heavily negotiated over the course of months between Commissioner Amin, the BNCA, members of the immediate community, but also the Office of Planning and other district agencies. And we would not have ended up with 15% if we were going to focus on more IZ units at lower levels of affordability. So that wouldn't have been the
Dan,
result.
Dan, if I could just clarify the zoning regulations. So the zoning regulations for IZ is 60% MFI, MFI, excuse me, for rentals and 80% MFI for sale units. Commissioner, to your point about 50%, that is the level that is required in exchange for any penthouse habitable space. So to the extent that you have penthouse habitable space, which is located above the maximum height of the zone, that is what would trigger a requirement for 50% MFI. So just a clarification on exactly what where those levels come in.
So can you tell me how many units you plan to build? What's in the planning?
So, Brandon, can you go to the slide that shows how the number of units has evolved over? I know Commissioner Amin told us that there were some questions. Um, so, you will note as you look at this slide that it looks like when we made our PUD submission that our gross floor area increased. It didn't actually increase. The zoning rules require us to include areas of the garage and basement. And so the gross floor area is sort of a misleading number. Our net residential area was 554,780 square feet in October. That's around the time of the first ANC presentation. It's also when we presented the first time to the BNCA. It then increased by about 2,500 feet. And at that time, as this progressed, we were thinking we would have an average unit size of 765, maybe 769 square feet. So we thought we would have 725 units overall. What happened between our first PUD submission and our second PUD submission is with our second PUD submission, we had to put in an inclusionary zoning floor plan, and we had to actually show the Department of Housing which units would be inclusionary zoned and what levels they would be at. And so that meant over the last, call it 3 months, we actually drew those units. And what ended up happening is the buildings didn't get smaller, but the ideal units ended up being larger. So it's still 557,423 net rentable square feet, but now it is an average unit size of 816 square feet. And so it is 683 units overall in our last submission.
So
Okay,
much.
and how many are 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms?
In the so Brandon, can we pull up a page of the PUD that has the unit counts?
But I still don't think my question was answered. This is Commissioner Higgins again. I understand what the baseline is, but what my question was is that I understand what is regulated, but could another 5% of the units go to the 50% MFI? Would that be something to be considered by Hanover? I know you are going by the baseline, but I'm asking, is that something that you guys could consider at that 50% MFI?
This is the best answer I can give you. We're supposed to meet with DHCD in the next couple of days. If DHCD said they would accept, I'm doing the math quickly, but I think it would be 7.5% at 80%, then I would do 10% at 50%. If
Okay,
DHCD did not agree to that, then
okay.
I would not do it. And so that is that if DHCD, now I want to say,
No, but I appreciate that because I know that that just wasn't a stopping point. That's why I asked. So it
no,
is some negotiation, but it's just what that picture looks like.
yes, and it's and as the ANC very well understands, by the time you're through the development process, you've answered to a lot of different groups, and DHCD and OP seem to me to be maybe first focused on the total number of IZ units.
I
And that
understand.
and so um, I think that what I will tell you is if a few more units at the 50% level is critical to the ANC, if DHCD will let us do a few more units at the 80% level to counterbalance that, then
On your part, on your part,
yes. So
correct?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So you'll be willing to get more 50% of the MFI if you're able to increase the amount of units that are at the 80% MFI, which will be paying more.
Yes, but I should tell you, our understanding is that the Department of Housing is already resistant to the current proposal. So I do not think that a material swing is available. If the request were, let's try and do more, like 5% more at 50%, and then 2.5% more, maybe. But I think DHCD, what we have now, DHCD would rather do 15% at 60% across the board than what we have now. That's my understanding. So I think when we meet with them, we can ask that question. But I am not willing to, without getting more 80% units, do more 50% units, because I've already agreed to 15% overall, which already, like I said, it set a new market in the district. And so I would need the offset. But if that is at the end of this conversation, the primary request is, can we do more at 50 and you do more at 80? I think the response from us would be, we'll ask DHCD.
Okay, so okay, so we're clear. So you're not willing to do more 50% without adding on additional units that are at the 80% MFI, because that's basically what you're saying. In order for you to do 50%, you need to get something out of it, and that's increasing units to the 80% MFI.
Yes.
Okay, so, and we know at this point that swap will not take place.
I would I'm willing to be an
No, and
advocate.
that's okay. It's okay. I just needed a definitive answer on what the increase of the 50% was without including uptick in the 80%. And you answered that question. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your answers. Thank you.
Okay, and the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom, can I get a count on that, please?
Brandon, can we go back to the other deck?
Absolutely. Give me a sec, because that's actually not in the other deck, so I got to find it really quickly. Give me a second.
And while he's looking for that, can you, I know you said you have phase 1 and phase 2. Is any district tax paid money involved in phase 1 and or phase 2?
We are receiving no district incentives, and we are performing a multi-million-dollar infrastructure and project because, and I didn't go into it because I didn't think it would really the focus, but when we realign Reed Street, we're taking these, 18, 20-foot alleys, we're turning it into a much larger right of way with streetscape. But because of the alignment, we actually need to connect to the Franklin Street Bridge, which turns out to be surprisingly complicated because there is a 6-foot combined sewer that's 100 years old and a 30-inch transmission water line. And we have to relocate. It's almost unbelievable how many large utilities are running through just that little corner immediately south of Franklin. It looks like these are the unit counts. This is just 2B. Okay.
So really quickly, this is Brandon Robinson, the architect on the project, or one of many, I should say. And we don't have the actual unit type breakdown for the whole project. We only have it building by building. So I'll let Dan walk through this, but when you look at these totals, you're looking at the top here. This is for the phase 1 building. You're looking at the IZ unit summary, which is 59 units in that building are IZ units. And then below it are the market rate units. So there are 335 market rate units in that building. And then I have to sort of go to the next page to show you the second building and the third building. So we can run through that really quickly.
So in each building, you have more 1-bedrooms than 2 and 3 bedrooms, and you have studios. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah. So for the overall unit mix for the site, you can look here. That is all in one place. So generally speaking, we've got basically 25% of studios and junior ones across all 3 buildings. We have roughly 45% of 1-bedrooms, roughly between 23.5% and 25% 2-bedrooms, and just shy of 5%, 4.5% 3-bedrooms in the project.
Okay.
Brandon, let's go back to the presentation. We'll just finish it quickly, and then we'll answer any questions that the commissioners or the community have. Okay, so project produces roughly 102 IZ units, which is, we think, pretty exciting. It's a lot of units in one project. If you could jump to the next slide. Of the recent PUD approvals, this is the percentage of residential GFA that was approved as IZ. As you can see, ZC 1821 was us in 5E a couple of years ago, and we were at 12% inclusionary zoning overall. I would say that the standard for a PUD used to be 12%. There has been a push to get more inclusionary zoning in the district, and we were the first developer to say yes. And so we said 15. I mean, we thought it was a big number, and continue to. It's 100 inclusionary zoning units in the project. Okay, and obviously this is just market rate developments. To Commissioner Carley's point, if you have a project with public funding that is also a PUD, your expectation would be that there would be a higher level of inclusionary zoning units. So that is a distinction. These are market rate developments that do not have public funding. Okay.
And I'll just say it's not just an expectation, it's legally required.
Okay, so if
it's required in exchange for that district support.
So if you do get district money, well, so then it's not even negotiated. If you get district money, you're legally required to do more. So this is projects that don't receive tax credits, district funding, all of those things.
Do you have any updated zoning commission cases from 2021? It looks like these are from 2017 through 2020, and I know the district has been making a much more concerted effort to increase affordable housing in the last couple of years. So if you have anything more recent, in addition to the two 2020 cases you have on here, that would be helpful to see.
Yeah, because the rules and regulations were updated in July of 2021.
This is Christy Scheiker again with Holland and Knight. We did go do a thorough review of all of the projects that had come through. Actually, since 2020, we updated that research earlier this week to see if there were other cases. The ones that we located in for 2021 were all either they weren't market rate PUDs. They all had some type of LIHTC financing or some type of district requirement. So there wasn't a traditional market rate. In 2021, excuse me, in 2022, we were the fourth case that came in 2022. There have been several cases after this case in which the IZ is being proffered at 15%, but our case was the first one to come in at that level for a market rate PUD that didn't have some type of higher 20 or 30% requirement. For example, there's a seniors project that was like 68% because it was getting all kinds of different special assistance to it. And in fact, you are correct that there have been changes to the inclusionary zoning rules over the last few years. They're primarily when you have a development where you get a map amendment and you don't go through a PUD. So you don't do any amenities, no benefits, no design review. You just go get a straight map amendment. And in those cases, there was greater IZ that's required. Again, that 15% is kind of what has now become the benchmark, with our case being the first one that filed for that.
Yeah, and so it's sort of interesting. When we spoke to the community at the beginning of this project, we asked if the community would prefer a map amendment. And to Christie's point, that comes with no design discussion, none of the other benefits we were offering, but it's automatic. You then just do 20%. And honestly, in some ways, that's an easier process than a PUD. Obviously, a PUD is like a partnership with the community. The community wanted us to do a PUD, and so we said, yes, let's do it. But I don't think, given the fact that you can do a map amendment at 20%, you're ever going to see PUDs go up above 15%. We were happy to set the benchmark, lead the field. I'm glad to see other groups now coming out and doing it. But if you end up above 15%, you're sort of saying, let's just go do a map amendment and not deal with all of the other complexities of a PUD, because a PUD is a dramatically more complex process.
Mr. Gordon, hi, this is Commissioner Higgins again. Thank you. You were talking about introducing the information to the community. How many development meetings did you have with the community prior to the case number, and how how was it? Were a lot of people at the meetings? Were you able to share a lot of your information?
Yes, so we put
occurred.
Yeah, so we put together a slide. Brandon, it's a little small. Can you zoom in? Is that possible? Can we zoom in? Maybe hold control when you zoom in. So go full screen, hold control. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we started engaging with the community in October of 2021. Our very first meeting, I remember it was me, the then president of the BNCA, and two leaders from the immediate 200-footer community. The next week, I met with Commissioner Amin on site. And these really, I sort of think of as the major meetings, because I just note, I've had many phone calls with Commissioner Amin, with Dan, the former president of the BNCA, and with community leaders. But we then met with the BNCA the following week, and the week after that, we presented to the ANC, again, virtually. We then started doing some in-person meetings with the immediate community. We had a meeting on site. I would say there were probably 20 or 30 people at that first on-site meeting. We then did a meeting specific to traffic. Traffic has been a major concern in the community. And then Commissioner Amin felt strongly, and of course we agreed, that it was important to do an SMD meeting. And so we did an SMD meeting in mid-November, which again was virtual. And then we did another in-person community meeting. We had promised the immediate community that we would come back again. We did that. We held it in a vacant school building on the west side of the tracks, where we have our construction office actually for our project on 8th Street. After that, in mid-December, we asked the BNCA to take a vote. The project had definitely evolved during that period of time. I think there must have been, I don't know, 5 or 10 markups of the CBA by the time the BNCA, the immediate community, and most importantly, obviously, Commissioner Amin had sort of gone through it. We submitted that and an updated presentation to the BNCA membership. That meeting occurred on December 16th. And it was a longer meeting. At the end of it, the BNCA agreed to a resolution with 14 people voting in support, no people voting against, generally in support of the project, with the agreement that the developer would continue working with the community on a few issues. We then had another meeting specific to traffic. And then I had a meeting with 2 members of the community on traffic. And then we had another meeting. There were a couple of neighbors concerned about solar impacts, so we had a meeting specific to that. And then I was asked by 2 of the commissioners, 5B03 and 5B05, to do a meeting for residents of their districts. We agreed to do that, of course. And so that meeting was also heavily attended. And then one of my colleagues met on site with some members of the community who were focused on the existing structures. This does not include any of the one-on-one phone calls, of which I would say there were probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 by over the last 6 months. So I feel that we ran a good community process. I very much stand behind it. I've been available to, I've talked to members of the immediate community. We've worked to address their concerns. I will tell you that some of the resolutions have been compromises. And I think they would say the same. I think getting 100% consent behind a development project, well, I don't know if it's possible. I wouldn't say that we could get 100% support for every aspect of our project. I would say, of the people attending these meetings, I would say over 80 or 90%, in my opinion, generally supported the project, even if they had specific questions about solar or traffic. Traffic has obviously been a hot topic of discussion across the board. And I hope that there are members of the immediate community and community leadership on tonight. I know when I'm done speaking, I believe some of them want to speak. I hope that they would agree with that, because I think we ran a thorough community process, and I think we engaged with a lot of members of the community during that process. And obviously that was a credit to Commissioner Amin and the process he wanted us to run.
Oh, I appreciate
Mr.
that. I
Gordon,
guess I have one follow-up question. As stated, so most of the meetings were actually held by Hanover, not the ANC. And because the actual case number wasn't issued until January 27th, 2022 for the public to view. So meetings held from February 3rd through March 26th, which were the community meetings that you held, but only one ANC meeting, which was with ANC 5B03 and 5B05 was conducted. So in between that, because it's always important that, of course, you did community engagement, but it's important that the ANC itself, which is ANC 5B04, introduce that information for unbiased information and to weigh in for community. So most of the information was given on behalf of Hanover. And of course, you did your due diligence. So other than the meetings between February 3rd and March 26th, were any other ANC 5B04 meetings held?
No, I mean, the plans haven't changed materially since our last SMD meeting in November. And, you know, this distinction between the case number having being released and not has not been an issue I've run into in other ANCs. But no, there's not been another SMD 5B04 meeting. My understanding is that Commissioner Amin has continued to be in touch with the community and that opinions generally remain the same, but he should obviously speak to that himself.
Mr. Gordon, before you say anything, excuse me, Mr. Gordon, are you saying since October, which I'm assuming is when the engagement started with the community, there's been no changes requested by the Office of Zoning?
When you say since October, I think
Well, you're saying that you thoroughly engaged the community, and I'm just going back to the first date you have up here. Okay, let's just say prior to February, January 27th. Are you saying there's no changes that Office of Zoning asked or requested on this throughout this whole project since you submitted the initial application?
Well, I mean, there was definitely the IZ floor plans and so those materials have been filed publicly. That was with our second submission. And our second submission was, I mean, it was certainly more detailed.
So
but,
that, yes?
Yes, there have been some changes to the application since our first filing.
And the reason why I asked that is because, and this is why we usually wait until we get a case number so that all this paperwork between the applicant and Office of Zoning is, you know, pretty much taken care of by the time you receive a case number, so that when we receive that information, we have what is considered the final information, the final documents, what everything that zoning asked for you to do up until that point, so that you don't have to go back and change anything, or nothing has changed since the meeting. All those meetings you hosted, and I'm sure something has changed, which means that the commissioners are responsible for ensuring that the residents get the correct information and the final information.
Commissioner, if I may, again, this is Christy Scheiker with Holland and I would just like to make sure everyone's aware that when the zoning regulations were changed a few years ago, they actually put in requirements that an applicant meet with and present the plans both to the Office of Planning and to the ANC prior to filing. So the Zoning Commission was really trying to encourage this outreach. And so that is one of the reasons why we started our outreach so early, is we wanted to make sure that we were able to do that. And then what we did is in our first submission, we detailed all of the changes that we made based on all of those meetings for our first filing. So I would say many, if not most of the changes that I think Dan is thinking about were made during that period of time, which was considered our notice of intent period of time. And
Exactly.
Exactly. So I just wanted to let you know the changes were mostly made.
Yeah, no, you are correct. The developers should reach out to the community, 200 footers, 300 footers, But again, as the ANC commissioners, we're supposed to give the final information and all the information and whatever changes happen up into that point, how it evolved into whatever it evolved into. So that's all I'm saying. So if the meetings were you received the case number in January, then there should have been some meetings afterwards to ensure that everyone in that area and everyone who may be impacted by this project understand this is the final project that you guys are requesting support for.
You ready?
Okay,
Do you need me
so
to call an Uber?
let's
Call
give
her
everyone an opportunity so we can also get into the
No,
chat room, because
but
again,
okay.
someone's talking.
I think if someone on the phone, they might just need to mute their phone.
Okay, so let's start out with the commissioners. Since we usually try to carve out 2 hours, but this was an hour and a half meeting, which probably gonna leave a lot of questions unanswered. So 5B02, you asked your question. 5B03, Commissioner Frida.
Picari, yes, thank you. I actually just had one, Dan, I know we've talked about, well, we'll get to the traffic piece in 1 second. One question I had, just looking at the set down report, how many units, I know that they're across buildings, but how many IZ units total are in this project? What is the 15?
Approximately 102 IZ units.
Okay. And in the set down report, it seems to say that it has to be between, or it's between 105 and 110. So I don't know if that was a discrepancy on their end or if there's any plans to add a couple of extra.
In the set down report, we were estimating a higher number of units. And so the set down report reflected our first PUD submission, not our second PUD submission. Ultimately, district rules are not unit based, they're square footage based. And the whole reason that those rules are that way is to ensure fairness. It's the amount of actual inclusionary zoning square footage that the district is focused on. So no, 102 units is probably slightly less than 15%. And that is probably because IZ units, because of other district rules, are forced to be on average larger than market rate units. And so it's 15% of the square footage is the commitment.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, I think there was someone else.
Go ahead, one more, Commissioner Fakira, so we can move on and give everybody, again, we have an hour and a half, not 2 hours.
Well, let me ask, Chair, are we is now the time to ask about the traffic calming and road safety, or do you want to come back to that separately?
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Then I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Amin.
No questions from 5B04, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Costello.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do have a question, and this probably will echo some of the questions and comments in the chat too. So Office of Planning, I think based on Hanover's initial submission, that's what you said. Office of Planning in its set down report suggested that Hanover reduce the number of parking spaces, which at that point were estimated to be around 332. Has Hanover revised the number of parking spaces in its subsequent submission?
Brandon, what number did we end up with on parking?
I'd have to check.
Yeah, I don't think it changed between the first two submissions, and I don't think we're planning to change it.
Okay,
Oh,
so
well, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, so it was we had agreed to reduce the number of parking spaces. I thought it was before the first submission, so we did reduce it slightly to 310.
okay. I recall too, we had spoken a while back about trying to, I think, include a few more units. We did have this conversation, I recall, and I think you had shared a revised image that showed maybe 2 more units or 3 kind of at that top garage level. I think the plan was to put some units on basically on that ground floor level to replace several parking spaces. is that what the 310 parking spaces number reflects now? Is the addition of
Yes.
new units?
Yes.
Okay, got it. So it sounds like what you're saying is Hanover will not add any additional units beyond that and reduce parking spaces. This is it. Even if it would satisfy some of my colleagues' concerns about the need for more IZ units. In other words, is there any way Hanover would eliminate some of those parking spaces and put in additional housing units instead that could become IZ units that would address some of my colleagues' desires here for more affordable housing? Is
No,
that
I
something you
mean,
would consider?
most of that parking is really below grade, or it's up against the train tracks, or no. I mean, I think we were willing to make the compromise that we made, but ultimately, we have a different take on parking. The district has the same parking requirements for proximity to a metro, regardless if you're at DuPont Circle or Rhode Island Avenue Metro. And that doesn't accurately reflect what the market demands. And so we looked at demand at the Rowan, we looked at demand in Brooklyn Press while it was leasing up, and as a result of pushing from the neighborhood, we did reduce the parking. And I wasn't sure when it happened, and it did happen between the two PUDs, but it was in response to a neighborhood negotiation, and so we have done that, but we're not going to further reduce parking.
Okay, so the image that you just shared with me was only one of the buildings. There are 3 buildings total, so there's no space in any of the other buildings to do the same thing that you did here, where you eliminate some parking and add more housing units?
In 2A, we eliminated parking that was below grade. And no, we couldn't have put housing units there, but that was part of the compromise. So we didn't fill the floor plate. So we eliminated that. And so no, we've moved as far as we're going to move on that point.
Okay, and then there was
The
another
parking
building.
isn't.
I'm sorry.
And actually, this is Brandon Robinson with Fort Copeland Mock again. Just to respond to that in a little bit more detail, Phase 2A building, what we're looking at here, all of its parking is truly below grade. So there was no ability for us to swap parking for residential units. The same is true for the Phase 1 building. All of the Phase 1 buildings parking is essentially below grade, except for this small portion where we were able to get units on that southeast corner. So the only place where we really had an opportunity to make swaps for parking and units was the Phase 2 building, which is what you're looking at here on this plan. And the challenge that we had is as we moved north towards the plan right side of this page, grade increased and the WMATA tracks also got much closer. And what you don't see on this plan, because this is super diagrammatic, is that WMATA actually has a retaining wall roughly in here. So by the time you start getting into this portion of the site and further north, grade is significantly higher,
Okay.
which made it problematic for us to put units back there.
Understood. I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to be cognizant of our time. Can you go back to the picture that showed the bike storage, please, in the other segment of the building?
Which building?
It was the other image where you showed the addition of, I think, 3 right there. Yep. So this is all in orange. That's all bike storage, right? But that's
It's below
slightly-
grade though.
It's also below grade, yes.
Okay, so the orange part is below grade. The yellow is at grade.
Correct. There to be completely fair, there's a zone in here of transition. So this portion of the bike storage room is truly below grade, and then it slowly climbs out of grade in this area, and because of that, there's no real opportunity to get natural light into anything there. But once we could get natural light into those spaces, we were absolutely making them units.
Not even with window wells?
We could arguably look at that, but it is really tight
We
because of our width.
couldn't do a window well in the right of way.
Yeah.
So I should just to add one more IZ unit, we'd have to add 7 more market rate units anyway. And so that the opportunity to add more IZ units doesn't exist, and we're sort of at the minimum parking we're comfortable with now.
Okay.
Um,
I'm sorry, can I just ask, I wanted
More.
to, I'm sorry, let me just finish my questions because I want to be quick about this. How many total units are in the most recent proposal from Hanover? Housing units, I mean, not parking.
I think is it 600 and
Yeah, it's the sum of that
683
587.
units.
Is it 683?
That's what I have.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so we are looking, in fact, at I guess a parking ratio of about 45%. So almost half of the units will have a parking space, which is a lot. I think we were aiming for somewhere slightly under 40% originally. So how can we fix this? And I just want to ask you too, I'm sure you've all heard of the phrase induced demand. So when you provide more parking, it encourages more people to have more vehicles and put more vehicles on the street, which means the neighbors are going to be dealing with more traffic problems. So if you can eliminate that induced demand by reducing the number of parking spaces offered, I think that would satisfy a couple of problems here. One, it would address what the Office of Planning has recommended. Two, I think it would address some of the traffic calming concerns that residents have expressed over the past several months. And, three, I think it would be a good faith gesture from Hanover that it does want to meet some of residents' concerns too about traffic safety. I understand you can't really squeeze any more housing units into the existing parking, so I will put that aside, but I do think there are other advantages to doing that. So I wanted to see what you can do to meet us on this issue.
I think there was a point where we had a parking ratio on some of the buildings that was in excess of 0.5, and that was not the goal. And we did want to come down from there, and so we have done that.
I think the overall parking ratio was just under 40%, though, was it not?
I don't remember a moment where the overall parking ratio was under 40%, which doesn't mean it's not possible I'm wrong, but I don't remember that. I don't know what submission you're thinking of. I understand what you're sort of saying though, which is that our average unit size went up, which meant that we ended up with less units, and so we ended up with more parking. So I don't see a place to reduce parking because of just the way the floor plates are laying out. And so, I mean, in the 2B building, you sort of, to get up above the train tracks, you need to have these stacks of levels. In 2A, we've already reduced the parking. So we can look at it one more time.
Okay.
But I don't see a
Okay,
likelihood.
let me throw out an idea. I don't know how much storage, if you have any storage units for residents below grade in the parking area as it is right now. Perhaps you could consider converting some of those parking spaces to storage for residents. I think that would be a huge plus. Everyone can use more storage, especially those living in studio or one-bedroom apartments.
816, what is it, 816 square feet, they're gonna need storage.
Thank you.
So what that is actually something that will happen. We will lose parking spaces to storage over the course of development. So that will happen. You don't normally block out storage units before MEP closets and just a massive number of other things. But if we say we're going to have 310 spaces today, the way it works is inevitably we will lose parking spaces. I understand the request about parking. I think we can take one more look at that, given that the ratio went up. I just don't want to make any false promises and tell people that we're going to further reduce parking, but I will say that we'll take another look at it.
That would be great. I appreciate it. If we could aim for 266 parking spaces, I think that would satisfy my concern.
There's no chance I think we're going to get down to 266, so I don't want to.
Sorry to hear that.
Okay, and one question, are you selling any, these units as condos?
None.
Okay, Oliver. All right, Commissioner Higgins, can you please open up the chat room so we can hurry up and get those? I know I saw someone that said that they wanted a meeting in 5B04. I'm not sure who that person is.
The chat room is open.
That was me, former Commissioner Racy Woodland.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, I wanted to know if we could have a meeting with this group of people in our SMD, because that's where the meeting should have been held. I think it's nice that they went out and shared with other people, but 5B04 should have been their concern. And not just the people who live close to the project. I was at a meeting this past week and I spoke with a few people who live on 10th Street and they have no clue about this project. So I feel that you guys should get out and you can help our commissioner by giving out some flyers, notifying the community, and having a meeting set up. He can do the meeting, I guess, and schedule with a link from the ANC, but you all can help him by putting out flyers at people's homes and letting them know in the whole SMD. And that way, you know, people will have a fair chance to communicate and be involved.
Okay.
So I just want to know, can you all work that out so we can have such?
Yeah, so I mean that would obviously be a question for Commissioner Amin. If he'd like us to do, you know, our hope is that the ANC is going to vote later this month. If Commissioner Amin would like us to do a meeting, you know, in the next week or two, we you know, that would really be up to him.
Well, I mean, it's up to the community. He worked for us to serve and provide what we want or what we don't want. So I'm assuming that would have to be a yes on his part. I'm asking you if your company would help him by getting flyers out. You know, you might not want to do it this week because I'm not sure, but you might want to get the flyers out and let the other people in the community know what's going on. So they can weigh in or have something to say if they want, or at least know about it.
So just
because I knew nothing about it. I'm not but a couple of blocks away from the place, that area.
I don't know that we would go out and flyer, but
well, it's been done many times in the past. And as me as a commissioner for a couple of decades, whenever projects like this came in the community and you're pressed for time, they've always been willing. They went out and helped me do the flyers. I walked with them, but we got our flyers out so everybody would be aware of what's going on. Because not everybody have access to social media type of whatever. And if they don't, at least if you share it with them, maybe they'll have opportunity to sit with someone else.
Let me speak with Commissioner Amin and ask him if he wants to hold another SMD meeting, because he did hold one. And if Commissioner Amin would like to hold another SMD meeting, at the very least, we'd certainly help print flyers, and we'll talk to him about distribution of the flyers.
Okay. Well, I hope he agrees to it, because that's very important. We only had one. I never attended that one. I've had conversations about this, but never have I been in a meeting where I talk with you guys. This is the first.
Oh, all right.
And as a citizen and a constituent in this SMD, that is very important and is very vital. And I would like to have the rest of the people in the community know what I'm knowing too. This meeting here didn't tell me all the things I want to know, because you basically were talking about issues and concerns and things that you talked about with other people, but I wanted to be talked about with the people that live where I live, 5B04, which we're the people who elect our commissioner to serve and do what we need to get done. Not none of those other commissioners, 5B04. So hopefully y'all can work together and provide a meeting to us.
Thank you, Racine. We also have someone in 5B04 who wants to know about a meeting before May 29th. They would be interested in joining Commissioner Amin. So if you could take that into consideration. Commissioner Higgins, any more questions or concerns in the chat room?
Not in the chat. I think Commissioner Costello answered what was in the chat.
We have anyone on the phone?
I have a question. This is Joe Bonet. I was just
Okay.
wondering, the units that will be built, will they be influenced by the noise of the train or feeling the train in their unit?
So we have to do we have done, and we'll have to continue working through. So we've done a geotechnical study and a sound study, and we'll have to upgrade the windows and materials on the track side of the building to isolate those units from noise. Vibration is a good question. If we get our geotechnical study right and we build our structural foundations right, the unit shouldn't be materially influenced by the track vibrations, although they will be very close to the tracks. So I think probably some noise and some sense of the tracks is probably impossible to avoid, impossible to avoid.
Oh, will any of the materials be soundproof that you're putting up near the train side?
They'll have a higher soundproofing rating.
Okay. Okay, I was just wondering if you were taking that into consideration, because I know the trains sometimes make a lot of noise and there's rumbling and everything else. So I just wanted to ask that question.
Sure.
Madam
anyone
Chair,
else
can
on the
I
phone?
ask?
Hi,
Madam
this is
Chair?
Nicole Clement.
There you go. Go ahead.
Can you hear me
Yeah,
okay?
there
Okay.
you go. You good.
I just wanted to speak up, not a question per se, but I know there's been a lot of reference to the immediate neighbors in the conversations. I live on the 900 block of Evarts, and I pulled together my neighbors that back up to this property directly and others who are interested through the BNCA to stay apprised to all those meetings that I know Dan went through. We did advocate early on in the FLUM to have this as a PUD process. And I would say, for my own personal opinion, it really has gone well and been a true conversation with the immediate neighbors. So I just wanted to get that and be able to share that with the broader ANC. So thank you for the chance to talk.
Thank you.
Any others?
Yes, hi, this is Andre Panamara from 2718 10th Street. So I was surprised to hear that Ms. Racine has not heard anything about this project. We've been talking about it for 2 years. Started with the FLUM discussion. You know, we had a number of meetings with BNCA. We had a number of discussions with ANC. So I was surprised, and I'm echoing Nicole's comments. You know, we've engaged early. It was a collaborative process, and you know, at the end of the day, we feel that we're getting to a very decent package here. You know, it's balanced. No one ever gets everything they want, but from the standpoint of the process and from the standpoint of the product for the community, obviously we need still a couple items to work out through traffic lights at a traffic light at Franklin. But other than that, you know, I feel very comfortable with this project and what it provides for the community. A lot of benefits.
Thank you.
I'd like to rebuttal that. Don't be surprised because I hadn't heard anything. I haven't. And if everyone have heard about it, that would not have come up in discussion when I was in a meeting over the weekend, this past week. So not all your residents know.
Look,
about
there's
this.
it's a public process. All the meetings
Yeah,
are
but
open
if
to
you
the
don't get the
public.
message out,
We
don't get the message out, they won't know
Well,
about it.
everyone who's interested
Okay, point of
from
I'm
this
done.
order.
wait a
project.
minute. Hold,
I'm
hold,
done.
hold,
Point
wait.
of order. Point of order.
What I would like to mention also, and I know when you started out the conversation, you said at the BNCA meetings, that doesn't mean, you know, everyone heard about it because the BNCA hosted a meeting, especially if they don't feel like they, you know, are part of the BNCA. And I guess, some people are expecting the commissioner to reach out, and maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But I think that's where Commissioner Racine was going with that, is an ANC meeting. Anyone else?
Yes.
Yeah, but
Can
for
I
me,
speak?
let me go here. Uh, yes, we have had a very thorough process. There have been SMD meetings, there have been one-on-one engagements throughout the whole entire process, not only since October, since we started working with Hanover, since the beginning of this process, as Nicole mentioned 3 years ago with the flum. So this has been open to everyone. If I am always open for meetings. Now,
Okay.
if anyone on 10th Street, and I live off of 10th Street, I know no one along on 10th Street or almost anywhere else in 5B04 that has no knowledge of this project at all. So,
Okay,
I mean, I don't know what else to tell
okay,
you.
Commissioner, you only have an hour and a half. Remember, you didn't do the 2-hour block.
Can I ask a question?
who's next?
Yeah, can I just
Can I-
ask something, since we are, the commissioner has put this before us for a vote. Nobody has mentioned some of the amenities that, ANC 5B is supposed to vote on. And I think it's important, so we can all have transparency. Some of the recipients of the um, um,
Benefit package.
benefit package, I think is in direct conflict with our ANC. So I really think we need to discuss that prior to our vote.
I truly agree with you, because I did not know, or I know I was not involved, and I know other commissioners felt like they were not involved, since basically throughout that uh, the package is mentioning 5B, negotiated, 5B agreed, and that's misleading. But go ahead, Mr. Johnson, before we get cut off by the meeting time,
Okay,
limited meeting time.
thank you. My name is Edward Johnson. I have an architectural planning firm at 3612 12th Street in Northeast. Couple of questions. What is the construction value of this project? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Sorry, is that question addressed to me?
Mr. Gordon, whomever
Yes,
can answer it.
What is the construction value of this project?
I don't know the number offhand.
Approximate.
I don't know the number offhand. I'm not going to guess at it.
Would we say a few $100 million?
I don't think it would get up to that big a number, but I'd have to look.
But somewhere in that area. Okay. Now let me make another observation. You've made reference to a 352 parking spaces being allocated for the site, and couldn't see very much green space. Maybe, as Commissioner Costello mentioned a bit earlier, you consider reducing parking and increasing green area at a time where there's so much overdevelopment occurring in the city, and it's destroying a lot of the green area, which increases health issues, especially asthma and sinusitis, coupled with the fact that as we increase the square footage of building masses, we also increase the usage of automobile traffic, as well as truck traffic to service these vehicles. So might be a good idea if you go back and look at reducing some of this parking and increasing some of the green areas that are absolutely necessary in a city that is experiencing just an overwhelming amount of additional construction that extends a lot more than 2 and 3 stories. That's very important, because the green area affects health because it produces 2 processes. One is called stomata, which pulls carbon monoxide and dioxide out of the air through the leaves and buries it in the soil, and the other is transpiration, which pulls water from the soil and releases oxygen in the air. The more we destroy the environment, the more we destroy our health. So I'm making that recommendation. Number two, I have a question. There's been a lot of discussion during this presentation about units and parking spaces, but there's been no discussion about the fact that this is a major economic development project. And for those in the community who don't know this, these land development projects are the primary source of economic development on the planet, not to mention in the city. And they generate enormous contracts and jobs. So my question to you, Mr. Jordan, since I haven't heard anything about investing money in minority firms in this associated with this project, what are you all doing about that? Generate a lot of contracts, a lot of money, a lot of millions and millions of dollars are being invested here. So what are you doing about supporting small minority firms?
Yeah, so I think that there used to be a requirement years ago in which certain types of applications before the zoning commissions made explicit promises with respect to what proportion of their contractors would be minority owned or something along those lines. And I think it was called First Source, and the district got rid of that process for reasons. Honestly, I don't know what the reasons are. We haven't made any firm commitments. We're going to bid the job. I mean, we're not even going to start construction probably for another 12, 15 months, just because the amount of time it takes to get through the project, the process. But certainly the goal is going to be to use district firms, minority firms, where we can, and it will certainly be a component of the project. But I can't tell you what the proportions would be.
Well, we trust that there's going to be some fairness with not only minority firms, but we'd like to see a reasonable percentage of these minority contracts awarded to African American firms. There's been a lot of talk about awards, but there's been little follow through. So you have an opportunity to do more than talk. Talk is cheap. So here you have an opportunity that's going to involve a project that I know is a few $100 million. And there are a lot of qualified minority firms, professionals, and in the trades that can support this project. And hopefully you don't place yourselves in a position about, well, we just went to the district and they gave us a few firms. We'd like you all to take some initiative to show that you're seriously interested in seeing some diversity and some fairness in the award of contracts, and especially to these African American firms who have a diversity of experiences and qualifications to support the diversity of these contracts that are awarded from this kind of a project. There's no other source of economic development outside of these land development projects. And they generate jobs and contracts when they're being planned, when they're under construction, and even when they're finished. There's no other source of economic development. And I think you all know that. So you really have a chance to step outside the box and make a commitment to African American firms here and do something about it other than just lip service. And we'd like to see a record of how you are taking the initiative to support these African American firms that are qualified and have enormous experiences in a lot of the construction trades.
Thank you,
Not
Mr.
only across the
Johnson.
city, but in this area, in this Brooklyn
Thank
area.
you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Commissioner, Ross Nover would like to know if you're going to have a meeting before the 29th, May 29th.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I will visit my calendar, and I think that what I will do is I will try to have two meetings. One will be in person and one will be virtual.
Okay, so everyone in 5B, those who raised concerns, they have just heard that Commissioner Amin will be hosting meetings. Before we get it cut off, you did say an hour and a half, right, Commissioner Amin?
Pardon me, I said hour and a half for what?
For this meeting, you said it for an hour.
You know what? I think that's probably about standard time, but I did not say a time, Chair.
Okay. So let's get last comments, last questions from the commissioners. 5B02.
Is Dan Scram online? I think Dan wanted to say something.
Oh, okay. Mr. Schramm.
I've been saying everything I have to say in the chat, actually.
Oh, okay. I was reading some of that. So
Yeah, we're supportive of the project generally, but happy to have. And I should say I'm the former president now. Kathy Jackard is our current president, but I offered to Kathy to continue to sort of represent BNCA on this. But if anybody has questions about our process and our consideration, they should feel free to reach out, and I'll be happy to follow up with them.
And just really quickly, I would just say, I think the ANC, I guess we were booked for a short time. I'm Miss Chairperson, I'm available longer if you would like the meeting to run longer.
I would love it to. I mean, usually we do a block of 2 hours, regardless whether we run, less time or not. But usually 2 hours is the standard.
I can stay.
Yeah,
I can stay.
I can stay as well.
Okay, great. All right, so let's start. Any more questions on the phone? Do we have anyone on the phone that have?
2 hands.
I want to thank my commissioner for having the meetings, and I look forward to being invited to them. Thanks.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Ray.
Roth.
Do we have anyone on the phone? We usually kind of overlook that. Anyone on the phone that have not chimed in?
No questions, Joe Bonet. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
I think we have a hand raised. We have 2. So Commissioner Costello, and then also, where did I see? Garrett Hennigan.
Mr. Hennigan, you go first.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Garrett Hennigan, 5B02. So, Commissioner Higgins, thank you for hosting this meeting, and to everyone. I just wanted to say really quickly, I've participated in both the BNCA's meetings on this and some ANC meetings over the past 2 years, and there's been quite a lot of discussion. So I sort of raising that as well as others have said. I really appreciate seeing all the IZ units in this. I would really love for that number to go up. But I mean, this is a good number to see. So thank you, and sort of the market rate space that you're working in, getting that number so high. Every single one counts. Certainly for myself, if I'm going to buy in this neighborhood, which I don't yet own, that's the only way it's going to happen. So thank you for sort of creating this space. But I did want to really quickly talk about parking. Others have said, I think Commissioner Costello spoke about this pretty eloquently, but I wanted to add on a little bit. This building is 0.4, 0.5 miles from an amazing transit center, not just, a bus stop, but lots and lots of great bus and a metro line, as well as one of the most popular biking and walking trails in the city. So this is one of the best transit connected and transportation connected spaces. I know that you say your financial models, you can't come down much further on the parking. Frankly, respectfully, I think you are wrong. And I encourage you to look around and talk with other developers, as I'm sure you have, but talk again with other developers in the area. Up at the Brookland Metro, there are many, many, many massive developments with lots and lots of apartments for rent that have big garages attached, and their lease rates are, as I understand it, very, very low. Those massive garages are empty, and you're talking here about underground structured parking, where I know that a parking space can cost upward of $60,000. So while you're paying for it now, that is on balance against inclusionary units, or boosting up the cost of the other units that you're selling or renting. So I would just, again, encourage you all to look at what the city's goals are of reducing driving, of reducing reliance on cars, of increasing use of transit, and getting down to 25% of trips by car instead of the 40 or 50%, 45% of it that it is right now. I know you're a Texas-based company. Be a good neighbor for us here in DC and try to assume and take on our goals as well. So with that, just say thanks for listening, and I hope to see that parking number come down just a bit, or a lot, as much as you can.
So let me comment again on parking. I appreciate the comments. First off, I was a DC resident. I recently moved to Maryland, but I'm local and my team is local. So not that that should really change anything or how we would treat the immediate community. But I don't think I wouldn't want the community to think that we're developing this from Texas. Let me provide a couple of data points on the project. So most of the changes made in parking were in phase 2. In November, we had in 2A a parking ratio in excess of 0.5 and in 2B 0.6. As we fleshed out the plans, that really wasn't the intention. We really wanted to be below 0.5. So how did we get to 0.5? So DDOT has one set of rules that it applies across the city, whether you're in DuPont Circle or Chinatown, it's the same parking requirement that's your baseline requirement. So we looked at some of the comps, and I appreciate you pointing out the comps. So Brookland Press built to a 0.2, 0.25 ratio. They'd leased all of their parking roughly 50% of the way through lease up. And Brookland Press parkers started to cause issues in the immediate community when they didn't have enough spaces in the garage. The Rowan, at a moment in time, had leased 40% of its units. Again, that they're parking to something like that 0.25 ratio. And when they had leased 40% of their units, they had leased 70% of their parking. I think you might be referring to like Monroe Street Market. Monroe Street Market, I believe, was built to like a 0.8, and I believe residents only filled 0.5 to 0.6. I think the point that was made tonight about our ratio having climbed because our average unit size increased is a fair point. So we're going to look at parking again. Those spaces, just as a result of architecture and space, are not going to turn into units. There may be, we're going to have to figure out where we can reduce parking. And so we're going to look at the buildings. And I think if there is a sensible way to reduce some spaces, I think we'll look at it. We don't want to build empty space. So we need to find something that makes sense. And I think I understood Commissioner Costello's ask. I think she specifically asked for 266 spaces. That is a very substantial drop from the 310 we're at. So I'm not going to promise that, but I am going to look to reduce parking between now and our supplemental submission and in advance of certainly the next ANC meeting. I am cognizant of the fact that, well, there are people in the broader community who, and understandably, want to get more cars off the street, and I understand that concern. When we reduce parking, we will also have an impact on the 200 footers, and there needs to be a compromise. But I understand the point, and we're going to take another look at it. And let me leave it with that.
Will you have charging stations in the garage?
Yes, and I think we put that in the CBA, and I think Brandon, are you pulling something up? Yes, we have EV charging stations. Yes, every single one of the buildings will have EV charging stations. I think we've promised to, we're committed to a certain number per building. And yeah, I mean, that is the way of the future, right? I mean, we recently as an organization, my boss's boss sent out an email, I think it was 6 months ago, and literally just said nationwide, we need to, and we were already doing EV charging stations in every building. He said, we need to double the ones we're building, and then we need to build infrastructure essentially for double that. So yeah, there is a focus on EV charging stations in our building, and not just for green reasons. I mean, customers are demanding them. People who lease units have electric vehicles. So yes.
And also, so you will be charging for the parking. You guys going to charge.
Yes, DDOT actually will require us to. It'll be part of our transportation demand management package with DDOT. DDOT will require us to have unbundled parking, and yes, we'll agree to that. And that is because DDOT is trying to disincentivize people from having cars in the district.
So on that note, I just wanted to jump in because I know that you had said that Commissioner Costello's ideal number for the parking ratio was not something that was tenable. I just want to point, so as we're talking about DDOT, the actual for a multi-family residential building that is within half a mile of the metro, which this one is, the goal is to actually have it be 80% non-auto and 0.35 or less, so 1 to every 3 parking units. So this is going way over even what the city's suggested maximums are.
No, and I agree with that, and that is because that same suggestion applies to DuPont Circle or to Union Market or to so that rule applies to every metro station, and
Yes.
it's the same rule, and so and I understand the different perspectives on this, but demand in this neighborhood has been higher, and people who have underbuilt parking, when I say people, developers who have underbuilt parking have ended up having people trying to park on the street. They've been struggling to lease units in certain, so that rule is a generalized rule that applies across the city. And then the way DDOT handles it, if you build parking in excess of that, is they ask you for more transportation demand management. And so because we are going to provide parking in excess of the baseline, we have to do more transportation demand management. So when we release the CTR, which I think is going to happen later this week, there will be, it's like Metro cards, it's Capital Bike Share cards, it's we're building a Capital Bike Share station, hopefully at the intersection of Reed and Evarts, adjacent to the farmers market that we're planning. And we're also, maybe we're going to get to it in a few minutes, or maybe we're not going to get to it at all. We're doing a whole lot to mitigate traffic in the neighborhood during construction. But yeah, so that is the baseline requirement. And then if you want to build in excess of it, you end up being asked to do more transportation demand management. And that baseline requirement is like, if you're at DuPont Circle, it's the same thing, which really doesn't, that is why it is a minimum.
Well, it's the preferred maximum is what they had said, was that's the preferred maximum for it in ratio to or in relative to the metro station. I just point out that DuPont Circle is on the red line, and so is Rhode Island Ave metro station. So I would argue that from a transportation standpoint, whether you're in DuPont or whether you're less than a half a mile from the Rhode Island metro, you are still very connected to the city.
Yeah, no, and I would definitely agree with that. But I think, the demographic at DuPont Circle would be younger, less likely to have a family, less likely to have children. And I think that that sort of demographic changes. People are more likely to have more family members. And that's certainly why, we're not building micro units here. We're not building stacks of 400 square foot units and appealing to single individuals. And that was really the point I was making. Access is good, but the people who want to live in this location, based on what we're seeing at the, in the other buildings, as well as the fact that outside of the residential buildings, so anyway, that is the difference.
I agree with that. I would only say that it, based on the breakdown of the unit sizes, it does seem like it's a lot more catering to singles or young professionals, not families, given how few relative 3 and 2 bedrooms there are, where an emphasis has really been on the studios, junior 1 bedrooms and 1 bedroom. So those numbers tell a little bit of a different story in terms of the ideal.
Let me just address that point, because I think it's a good one. So if we, Hanover, were building a project at Union, not even Union Market, let's say DuPont Circle, Chinatown, our average unit size wouldn't be 820 square feet. It would be 600 square feet. And our average one bedroom unit size would probably be 500 square feet. And here, our average one bedroom unit size is probably going to be 700 square feet. And the difference between putting a couple with, let's say, a kid in a 700, well,
I was like, I don't think you're going to get a lot of couples with kids, or at least long term, that are trying to stay in an apartment with a one bedroom. Like again, that would go up to the 2 and 3s.
Unfortunately, the reality is something like 50 or 60% of units turn each year, and apartments for a lot of people are a short-term solution, and I completely agree with that. But the units are larger. That mix between 1, 2s, and 3s. Oh, sorry, was somebody trying to say something? Maybe that's just the units are larger. Our one bedroom units often come with built-in desks and like pieces, essentially replacement furniture. So it is different than what we would do downtown, and I do think it is going to more appropriately appeal to folks who are moving to Northeast, and I do think that is a slightly older demographic. So that is our sense of the renter market in this location, and obviously people could certainly disagree with us, but that's our take.
Can I ask you a question? You mentioned fare cards and ride share or bike share. Would that be complimentary?
Yeah, it's in the transportation report during lease up. We're going to, I think, offer, I think it's $100 fare card and a maybe it's a 1-year capital bike share membership to every new tenant as part of our transportation demand management. And when we release the CTR, I mean, and this is something we have not yet. So the negotiation with DDOT is one of the last things that happens, and it continues to happen right up until the hearing. We'll be going back and forth with that on DDOT, but yeah, there's and we're going to build the Capital Bike Share Station. We hope in the location we've selected. There is a substantial amount of TDM that is in our of transportation demand management solutions that will be in our CTR.
You mentioned $100. What is that? A week, a month?
No, it's $100 one time if you lease a unit.
Wow. And the bike share will be 1 year access free.
Yeah, I think it's annual membership. That's the goal with the bike share is annual membership.
But 1 year is all you offering. That's what I'm asking. After that, they would have to, they're responsible. Okay. The other question is, do you have an idea of what a 2-bedroom would cost to rent?
A market rate 2-bedroom. Per month, maybe like between like 3,000 and 3,500 a month, something like that for a market rate 2-bedroom. I'd have to pull up the IZ schedule for the IZ rents.
Okay. Commissioner Pereira, Commissioner Costello, you guys have asked your question. Commissioner Higgins, do you have any other questions?
I did have some follow-up questions, but if Commissioner Higgins would like to go first, I'm happy to let her do that.
No, you go ahead because I don't think my questions will be answered.
Okay.
I mean, because we kind of wrapping it up. So
yep, I'm gonna keep it quick.
Don't have anything. Commissioner Pereira, do you have anything?
I have lots of things on the traffic safety, but we didn't get to that part yet, or to that part during this meeting, so.
Well, as a matter of fact, let's get to it. You go ahead and start us out.
Well, I'll
Yeah,
let Commissioner
real-
Costello go before we
Well,
switch.
she's circling back to something else, right, Commissioner?
This will segue us into the conversation,
Okay.
I think.
Can I interject one thing? I was confused. There was a question before about the community benefits package. Did you guys want to go through the community benefits package also?
I think I reviewed it before the meeting, and I think that we the board need to go over that first before we basically come up with any. I think we need to discuss that amongst ourselves first.
Okay. Yeah. Let me ask a quick question before we start changing topics drastically. For Mr. Gordon, I just wanted to know, I think you mentioned during construction, you've mentioned this a few times actually, that during construction, inevitably, some of that parking space that is estimated will probably get lost for various reasons. What is the margin of expected loss of parking spaces during construction? Is it 10%, 5%? Maybe one of your colleagues knows.
Sorry, not during construction, during design.
Okay.
So right now we're somewhere in the midst of schematic design. By the time we have a sort of 100% design completed,
Mhm.
I don't think that a factor exists for that. It's not 50 spaces. It's probably at least a few per building, maybe 5 per building, something in that neighborhood, that you have the potential to lose as you work through utilities, MEP, all of that. And I just want to say, I think it was Commissioner Higgins. I want to apologize if you feel that there was any question I didn't answer. If there's another question you want to ask, whenever Commissioner Costello is done, I'm happy to answer those questions.
Yep. No, let me finish. Thanks. The reason I ask is I think if we were aiming to get back to closer to the 0.40% parking ratio, that would be 273 spaces based on 683 units. So if we're looking at 273 spaces, I propose 276. It's only a difference of 7 spaces. I don't think that's a huge stretch to accomplish. So I just wanted to point that out. Second, Ross had a question in the chat earlier about traffic calming at Reed and Franklin. I think we were about to jump into that, but I did just want to ask my colleague, Commissioner Amin, maybe at the end of the meeting, if he could just, for his constituents, say where the meeting notice for his meetings will be posted, just so everyone's clear and nobody feels like they missed the opportunity to join in. I think that would just be helpful. That's all I wanted to add, and I'm happy to move the conversation to the next topic now.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Fakir.
Yeah, I was gonna go into the traffic safety. Oh, it was Terrence. I was saying the CBA, the organizations were already up, so I didn't know, Commissioner or Chair Carly, did you want them to quickly just go over the groups so the public has a chance to see what other organizations are on the CBA, or should we switch over to traffic?
I would like. I don't want to do the benefits because I for the very first time I reviewed it before the meeting. And I don't ever remember, because 5B is mentioned throughout that, basically saying that it was an agreement, 5B, and I don't remember being involved in it. And I had other commissioners also say they were not involved in it. So I think we need to discuss that first to see what the individual commissioners' point of view is.
Let me just so there are a lot of references to benefits that have to be done within a location. I'm looking at the community benefits agreement. I'm not sure. Well, so Commissioner Carly, I don't know it. certainly the top says we are asking the ANC to vote on a resolution in support of the project and to attach to that resolution this community benefits agreement. And so in that, ultimately, it is an agreement with the ANC. It was
When you
negotiated.
say we, when people use the word we, can you tell me who is we? You said we assume.
No, I sorry. I'm saying we, the developer,
Okay,
are asking the ANC to vote,
I understand.
but ultimately, I mean, you're absolutely correct. This agreement was negotiated in 5B04 with the SMD, with the BNCA, and with the immediate community. And I was under the belief that that was certainly the goal of the ANC as a whole, was that we were supposed to negotiate in 5B04. And I think it does say at the top, it is a commitment to the ANC because we are asking the ANC to vote on the resolution and to attach to the resolution the community benefits agreement and the construction management plan.
I understand.
It sounds like there isn't a desire to go through the individual.
That was not what I was trying, that I did not intend that. I was actually asking and want my colleagues and I to discuss it before.
Chair Colley, I as a negotiator, as the commissioner, I would like the opportunity.
Commissioner, I mean, I understand that. No one's trying to remove.
No, so Commissioner, I would like to, I would like Hanover Group to, we can discuss this as a board.
And we will discuss this, Commissioner.
But tonight, for tonight's meeting, since we're all here, let's go over it.
No, I'm not going over it. I want everyone to have an opportunity to read it, Commissioner. I read some of it for the very first time just before this meeting.
You've had it since January, Commissioner.
Commissioner, we're going to move on.
Commissioner, I feel like you're denying my constituents their due process.
No, you're denying your constituents their due process. Please let's not have this conversation right now, Commissioner.
For what reason can we not go over it? Even if
we don't have time. You scheduled this meeting for an hour and a half. We already went over more than enough time. We have we're going to move on to. You made it an hour and a half.
No, untrue. You made it an hour and a half, Commissioner.
No, I did not. The time you put down there was from 6:30 to what? 8?
In Cal, we discussed it, and you said an hour and a half, Commissioner. It's on recording. Thank you.
Commissioner, Madam Chair, Commissioner, I believe that we do need to discuss this amongst the commissioners prior to us moving forward, but we do need to discuss some of the items listed below. We have gotten the information that we needed to get from the Hanover Group, and we really appreciate you participating this evening and providing us with the information that we needed. Commissioners, do you have any additional information that you would like to share?
Commissioner who? Commissioner and I think I made this, and I'm not sure why we have to discuss this tonight, and I mentioned it twice, that we're going to discuss this in the Cal meeting with the commissioners, and we can move forward from there.
No, Commissioner, what I'm saying to you, Commissioner Colley, is that it's not for the commission. The commission will have ample opportunity to discuss this. Let's discuss it let's present it in front of the community. So they know where we're starting when we meet.
And we will after we discuss it in the Cal.
No, ma'am. I'm asking that we discuss it now.
No.
Okay.
Can I let me just say something quickly. I do not, rightly or wrongly, I take pride in the community process that we've been running, and I defer to the commission on what should be discussed tonight. So I can't opine on that. but we are available to remain here and answer the community's questions. I think if people would like us to go through the traffic mitigation plan for the benefit of everybody, we're certainly happy to do that. I defer to the commissioners on what else should be discussed. Commissioner Higgins, if there's another question that you would like to ask us, I'm certainly willing to address that as well, or any of the commissioners. So we can go to traffic. We are not.
Mr. Gordon, I really appreciate your time and effort. But this has nothing to do with what you're discussing.
I
This
think
is
he was
separate
referring
and
to your comment earlier,
right,
Commissioner Higgins.
right. I did, but what I need, the information that I needed, you provided, and actually there was no negotiation in reference to it. Commissioner Costello did provide an option or two, which also was not feasible. So my question was actually answered. And I do appreciate Commissioner Costello for trying to come up with some type of solution or resolution. But I do appreciate your time, Mr. Gordon, and you answering my questions. So thank you.
Okay, do we have commissioners? And I'm not sure how detailed we can get into the traffic safety because of the time.
I would love for us to at least attempt it. I know we have a lot of members from the community on, and since there's
Okay, so can we just give it a few minutes because we are running out of time? I mean, I wish we had more time, but that does not mean that we cannot invite questions at our full body meeting at the end of the month. If we once we discuss this again in Cal, but go ahead so we can move on so we can kind of wrap this up.
I think we can keep this focused. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, I think,
yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Commissioner Procure.
Yeah, this is something that I know has come up many times. We already have a serious issue with Franklin and that bridge traffic accidents. That is a very high pedestrian area because of all the schools that surround it. And one of the pieces of most concern has been the intersection of Reed Street and Franklin. And so I know that there have been different scenarios on what could be done to control traffic at that intersection. But I was hoping that Mr. Gordon and others can speak tonight about things that can help mitigate. I know right in, right out for me doesn't seem like it goes far enough, especially with stop signs and people blowing through them. I've mentioned in private, I'd like for the community at least to consider a potential one-way south going from Franklin to Evarts. So just that one block in hope that that will mitigate any bad drivers kind of going up quickly onto the bridge. But also happy to get the community's feedback on that because I know that there was concerns about what that would mean for the 200 footers.
Chair Colley, I would like Andre to address that because we
Sure,
have discussed that.
Yes. So, overall, obviously, our work with Hanover was to try and minimize the impact of the, new traffic generation on the existing community, right? On the existing infrastructure, existing streets, 10th Street being the one where there's a lot of congestion in the morning. So, what traffic is a little bit like liquid, you want to make sure that it can flow. So our approach to this was that the intersection of Reed with Franklin has to be a full capacity intersection that allows left turn on Franklin and right turn on Franklin and the other way around. So this way, Reed is a connector for the two largest buildings in development, connected to the parking entrance to the development. So that connector needs to be fully capable of basically being a conduit for the traffic going both southbound and northbound, and at which point it either goes westbound or eastbound on Franklin, or same on Rhode Island. So if we're making that a one-way street from Franklin down to Evarts, then essentially all of the westbound traffic, northwestbound traffic, would have to go either through the alley or the 10th Street. So that would be adding more to congestion on 10th Street from compared to what it is now. Ideally the Reed provides that access point, ingress and egress, for the two buildings and the parking and essentially the entire development, independently of the existing infrastructure and existing streets. 10th Street being very congested in the morning. Everyone knows what happens on 10th Street, with the tastemaker and NOAS school and drop off, and plenty of documentation of that being a parking lot in the morning at around 7:45, 8 a.m. when the school day kicks off. So our approach was and continues to be with Hanover is to push for a traffic light at the Reed and Franklin, with ability to unobstructed essentially access to Franklin, westbound and eastbound.
Oh, I didn't even realize that westbound and eastbound was in consideration for the traffic light. I think in the conversations that we'd had, it was just eastbound. But so I guess my question then would be, so right now, by opening up Reed Street to connect to Franklin, I think it allows there to be another kind of through street. So basically people trying to get from Rhode Island Avenue to Franklin, rather than having to go down 10th, which you're right, is pretty congested and normally just dissuades people from doing that. This opens up another lane for them to potentially kind of speed through just to cut through the neighborhood. And so the hope was, my hope at least, was that in not having that be the easiest way for folks to get onto Franklin, if you're coming from the Rhode Island side, that would limit the amount of cars that are trying to use this neighborhood, frankly, just as a cut through, rather less concerned about the people living here, more concerned about the folks that are just using this.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. And if you look at the existing conditions, right? So there is a very strong pattern there of cut through from Rhode Island up north, whether it goes through 10th Street, whether it goes through the existing alley, or whether it goes through the existing Reed Street. So there are 3 curb cuts along Franklin between the the new intersection and 10th Street. There are 3 curb cuts, and all of those are currently utilized for various cut throughs. Right, in the morning it's primarily westbound. At night it's primarily eastbound and southbound. In the morning northbound and westbound. In the afternoon southbound, eastbound. So that's existing, and that's not going away. If unlikely to go away. If the best way to deal with it is to make it as safe as possible, right? Another set of asks and proposals that we have for Franklin is, in addition to traffic light, having speed cameras on the bridge, and and the red light camera on this red light new light at Franklin and Reed. Franklin is a major connector, east and west, and sometimes the best way to kind of deal with reckless driving is actually to slow it down as much as possible.
Have you discussed that with DDOT, the speed cameras?
We have mentioned it to DDOT. It's in conversation progress, and I don't think we've arrived at any rigid conclusion there with them. But this is on the table, and with Hanover.
No, thank you, and I appreciate that. Everyone knows how I feel about traffic cameras. I'd like more of them, only if we start to enforce them. And so it seems like a lot of, I know all the residents know this, especially if they're Maryland or Virginia plates, they are not accountable. They don't have to pay the tickets. There is no repercussions for doing so. So in some cases they're there, but they don't always help increase safety as much as we'd like. So one question then for you. So you were talking about this traffic light, but in the actual submission, it has the right in, right out. So how did that kind of like?
All right, so why don't I speak to that? So we spent a lot of time going over this with our traffic engineer, and our traffic engineer basically explained that there are. Brandon, can you zoom in on the intersection? The intersection of Reed and Franklin. Sorry. Yeah. So you want to hold control, I think. Yeah. Okay. So there are a few problems. So the first problem is the distance from this intersection to the 10th and Franklin intersection. The second problem is the fact that it's offset from a driveway across the street. And so you've got a driveway right there that wouldn't align. The third problem is that the intersection is occurring at a bridge, and so it's difficult to do all the poles. And so you sort of have to figure out, are you going to do an offset light, or how do you make it work? And then the last problem is that there's a safety issue because there's an incline up as you go north on Reed Street, and that's part of what we're doing is we're raising the grade of Reed Street to meet the bridge to create that alignment, which creates visibility issues. So think person biking down the street along Franklin.
This is the point of contention. This is the main concern.
Yes. So right in, right out brings all Reed Street traffic to a stop if people are obeying the law. Obviously, if you have a green light condition, people can roll through. With all that said, assuming that we got to a situation where DDOT was okay with bending all of those rules, we as the developer, I think, would agree with the immediate community that a full motion intersection there would be best to alleviate traffic on the alleys, to create access to and from the development, et cetera. So we are in the process of thinking through what streetlight condition to present to DDOT. This is a result of many conversations with Andre. I think what we're going to do is present a streetlight condition where the driveway that's offset is just a driveway, and it's just a three like a T intersection. So this will just be a driveway. It won't be part of the intersection, and then we'll have a light here that will provide for sort of a Franklin Reed Street intersection. And I think if we're going to do a light, that's the best of the available solutions, sort of given the grades, the connectivity, all of the problems. In our submission, we showed it as a right in, right out because based on DDOT's rules, that's what DDOT we expect will want there. But we're going to advocate for a street light. I think there are many positives to a street light. I think ultimately it's on DDOT to evaluate the safety issue. And if we got to a street light, in many respects, it would be great. So I don't have the highest hopes that we're going to get to a street light there, just given all of the reasons I explained. But we're going to try for that.
I think my only piece, as you identified the visibility portion, I think for me, my big concern is with that kind of incline. I see your point. If it's a green light, someone can speed through, but still with rolling stops on stop signs and a red light, we're still dealing with the visibility piece. Whereas kind of a one way just for that one block takes away that because you don't have the same visibility issues going down the incline versus up, or I guess it's a decline at that point.
Well, so let me say this. If it's going to be one way, a light wouldn't add anything really, because it would just be one way in, and you would do a block to stop leftbound traffic. My perspective on this is I think that members of the immediate if the immediate community and the broader community agreed on a different traffic orientation, I think Hanover could potentially be supportive. It wouldn't be our first choice. I think Hanover would prefer after a light, right in, right out. I think we think it's better for the immediate community and the development. But you know, if there was agreement amongst in the broader community, including the immediate community, then you know, I think that's an option. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, is that it on safety?
I just have a quick clarifying question. You mentioned the visibility issues going up Reed Street, heading northbound toward Franklin, going up the ramp, in other words. What the grade is about 5 degrees. So can you just clarify what the visibility concern is specifically?
I can probably address that, Dan, if you don't mind. The first of all, it's not 5 degrees; it's 5%. So the slope between the Evarts Street alley and Franklin Street is roughly 5%. The visibility concern is really for traffic coming over the bridge. I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar with what that bridge looks like, and there are crash guards on that bridge, and there is also railings on that bridge, both of which can impede drivers' visibility because drivers' eyes are lower to the ground than a walking adult. So it's really that traffic coming over the bridge, running eastbound on Franklin Street, and having a sight line of pedestrians in that intersection as they come over the bridge, and also of cars sitting at the intersection on Reed being able to see over all of those crash barrier obstructions on the bridge to see vehicles coming eastbound on the bridge. So that's really the visibility issue. In every other regard, this intersection is identical to any other street intersection as far as sightlines are concerned. Anyone on the Reed Street waiting to turn onto Franklin one way or the other, whichever way the community ultimately approves, is easily visible from traffic running westbound. So it's really just those vehicles coming over the bridge eastbound, and we are looking at that intersection and the extent of the crash barrier and railings there.
There's a lot
to minimize that issue.
The sideline issue would be there whether you're doing right turn in or you're doing left turn out. So you're going to have the sideline issue regardless.
Understood. So yeah, I understand too about the visual obstructions. I think you've got, if I'm not mistaken, a Jersey barrier, maybe a metal guardrail, I can't recall, and then there's some kind of fencing as well, which is a lot. I think the other complication here is you have a school just east of the development, or if you're looking at this image in this orientation, it would be down at the end of the block. And I think you've got now 5 charter schools going in just on the other side of the bridge. So that's a lot of little people walking across the bridge, getting to and from school. My deep concern here is that drivers going up the ramp or coming down the bridge, as you noted, Brandon, are not going to be able to see people, 3 feet high or less, walking on that sidewalk. I'm very concerned about this. I'm extremely concerned, and I think this is my biggest worry with this proposal here to do this ramp the way that you guys have proposed. I know it's a kind of a complicated intersection. I think we really absolutely need to work together to address that issue because, mark my words, I will be damned if some child gets killed because we haven't done everything we could to make this intersection as safe as we can. I would strongly encourage Hanover to look at making Reed Street one-way southbound, like you said, Dan, in consultation with members of the community. And I think there may still be some who are on tonight. I'd be curious to hear what they think about that. But I do think this is a serious concern that needs to get addressed.
So let me just say this. As part of our CBA, we have obligated ourselves to facilitate discussion between DDOT and the community. I don't know that we have all of the 200 footers on tonight who might have opinions on this. We're not going to go away on the traffic conversation. We couldn't go away if we wanted to, forgetting the fact that we've committed to it. But we're going to be discussing this with the community throughout. The final decision is going to rest with DDOT. I will say that the zoning commission has said, as a general matter, in set down, that one of the first things they're going to look to on this case, maybe on other PUDs as well, are the opinions of the 200 footers, and obviously they are our neighbors. They're our immediate neighbors. At the same time, we would like to make this condition generally as safe as possible. And so I think that the goal here is to facilitate community conversation with DDOT. I think we've promised, or we wanted to promise, all of the commissioners an opportunity to attend those conversations, members of the BNCA, members of the community, to comment on the various orientations of this intersection. We are working on a traffic light diagram, which, excuse me, I think some members of the community, maybe all of the members of the community, I'm not sure, maybe everybody thinks the traffic light solves the problem. I think if there's community and developer consensus on that, it's still going to be an uphill battle, but maybe we have a shot at getting a traffic light approved. So I don't think this conversation is going to end with the ANC making a decision to support the PUD. I mean, I think the conversation with DDOT is going to roll up into the hearing and probably in some respects continue after the hearing. And I think the community should be heard on this issue. I think it is a complicated intersection.
Yeah, no, understood. I mean, we met on this previously back in February. I think the answer to this concern then was, you know, I don't think Hanover was supportive of converting this block into a one-way because it would limit accessibility into the development or out of it. I don't really think that's the highest and greatest priority when we're talking about the lives of young people. But whatever, it's a priority, I guess, for some. And so I think what I would say is if we're going to be putting other traffic calming requests or statements in the CBA, let's resolve this before your hearing so that we have the strongest possible proposal to put forth before the zoning commission.
So just to clarify, what I think I said a few months ago was that if we made it one-way south, it would increase the traffic on the 10th Street alley, and it would increase right turn traffic out of that alley, which I think is less safe than a right in, right out condition at Reed and Franklin with a full street. And I continue to believe that. I think one-way south will put traffic onto that alley. And I think right turns out of alleys like that are more dangerous than out of right in, right out intersections. And I think I also said, and I do believe this, that we are putting commercial, we're putting makerspace in these buildings, and yes, it would inhibit access. But I think that was my secondary point. My primary point was it will put that traffic onto the alley, and I think that will create a more dangerous condition. But what I'm saying tonight is, if there is community agreement that one-way south is better, then we would not oppose it. I don't think it is better. I think it will create a more unsafe condition because of what will happen on the 10th Street alley. And I think that is why the 10th Street neighbors may be opposed. But let's continue the conversation.
Okay. So what would be the plan going forward? Is there another conversation planned with the immediate neighbors to discuss this issue before the hearing? And before the commission is asked to vote on, I'm sorry, before our commission is asked to vote on this?
No,
I
because
think a couple of people from 5B04 requested a meeting this month, so hopefully that will, that'll happen, and, maybe we'll get invited and see, what they, how they feel about the traffic, safety plan.
Yeah.
So the answer in terms of timing is this will not be resolved before we are asking the ANC to vote, because ultimately a resolution is going to be with DDOT. And there's no way to flip that time frame because DDOT will be making its recommendations at the hearing. Although obviously we hope to reach agreement with DDOT before then. So
I'm sorry, let me just clarify what I meant. I understand that DDOT is kind of later on in the process here.
Right.
All I meant was for us to reach resolution, meaning the community, Hanover, ANC 5B, on what our first choice request is in terms of how to deal with this intersection. That's the resolution I'm talking about, that I hope we can reach before the ANC is asked to vote on something by the end of June.
Just so I understand, is there not consensus that a light is the first choice?
I'm not sure.
I think you had suggested that we should talk with members of the community, the immediate neighbors.
The immediate community definitely a light is the first choice. I think the one-way south is the question, and so I'm very confident in stating that the immediate community would prefer a light. And if anybody from the immediate community wants to disagree, please speak up. So that is the first choice, and that is what everybody's going to be advocating for at the traffic meeting that we're going to schedule with DDOT. So
that's correct.
I guess I would just say, I mean, I've spoken with a couple of people, just not as many as you have, Dan, who expressed a preference for a different option.
Yeah, I just second that. I think I've heard from a couple of folks that when presented as a binary between the stoplight and a right in, right out, the stoplight was preferable, but I don't know. I've heard directly from folks that they didn't know that there was a potential third or any other options on the table.
So let me just ask, I mean, Andre, I hate to put you on the spot. I'm happy to meet on this. Do you think that there is a chance that your neighbors will be supportive of a one-way south?
Anything that is limiting the motion up and down Reed will be putting more traffic into the alley and onto 10th Street. Noya School is overwhelmed with traffic in the morning, every morning. If you guys want to come over and take a look at it, please come. I've been documenting it from my window that I'm sitting right across from the school for months. If you want to see the full block parking lot in the morning in the 10th Street, I'm happy to share these pictures. Anything we do that's going to limit the through capacity of Reed Street will increase load on the existing infrastructure, and this is what we're trying to avoid, and as a starting point for trying to mitigate the impact of this.
I completely agree with you. I see traffic on Franklin every day. I guess what I would just say is if we have an opportunity to create an entirely new intersection or roadway design, let's do it right from the beginning and not create additional problems in this neighborhood, That's, I think, why I raise this, because I don't want to see the visibility issues that even Hanover has said exist become a problem or a fatality for our neighbors here.
I totally understand, and there's a precedent so for every concern that was voiced in terms of how this traffic light is not ideal in terms of the geometry and distances. I get that, but there's a precedent for that in the city, and we've mentioned that before. We found the precedent in the city. Harvard and 9th Street. You're going uphill, crossing over Georgia Avenue. Is this ideal? No, but in the context of as a solution, or kind of holistically looking at it, right? We will have a clearly marked intersection. We've asked for additional signalization for pedestrian crossing. We have, for that matter, if we want to request for one of those DDOT assigned, people during rush hour to school to basically be there to help kids cross the sidewalk to walkway, then that could be another option. So everything we're doing here is to try to, number one, increase the safety. Number two, minimize the impact on the existing infrastructure. So
Understood.
no one in their right mind would ever say that we're trying to do something not with safety in mind. Safety in mind was number one concern that the community brought up in our first in-person meeting with the developer. Because we're living this every day. There are 509 cars that are going through the 10th Street alley on a daily basis, cutting through the light. 500 cars. Do you want to, you know how many that is per hour?
Yeah.
Like 30 cars per hour.
I think we had another resident propose a solution, which would be to kind of block off that 10th Street alley on one end. I think there may be solutions to a lot of these. I don't know if they're.
Commissioner Costello, who are all of these residents that you're referring to?
I'm sorry.
And are they 5B04 residents? Hold on, excuse me, Commissioner Colley. Are they 5B04?
Commissioner, don't interrupt people. Come on now. You want to get your opportunity to talk, but don't. Come on now. We talked about that. Don't just blurt out stuff. Come on now. I mean, wait your turn or ask to speak, but don't just blurt out something. Okay. Go ahead, finish, Commissioner Costello.
Thank you, Commissioner Carley. What I was trying to say was, I think there are solutions to many of these problems. They might not all, be ideal. Obviously, there are drawbacks to each of them. And I completely respect, Andre, that, you have a lot of traffic. I assume it's caused by the school, but I don't know if that's what you were intending to suggest. Going to and from your house and through the alley. Let's see if we can figure out a way to address this that doesn't create, subsidiary problems further on.
Absolutely. We're all ears for anything we can come up with to prevent the cut through. Absolutely. We've talked about all of this. Look, if we can close the alley, let's close the alley.
Yeah.
But the likelihood of that happening and the access that people need for trash pickup and also all city services is not a lot.
So let me just quickly jump in. So we, particularly Andre and I, spent a bunch of time talking about closing a section of the alley. Andre was interested in it. I don't know if all of the neighbors would have supported it. So that's one thing you need. And then what was made absolutely clear is there's just no chance DDOT is going to support that. The trash trucks, the services, access behind that alley is critical, and people park back there. So it just, DDOT was not whatsoever open to that. I just want to say,
yeah,
I think we should have another conversation on this. I'm totally open to that, but I want to say the right in, right out solution was what the traffic engineers believed and what DDOT initially believed was the safest of the solutions. That's why it was selected. So if the community decides that the community would prefer southbound one way, I don't think that is a safer solution because of what the impact will be on the alley. But I do think I will say we will not oppose that. I think let's do another conversation on traffic. I think part of the problem, Commissioner Costello, is I don't know that we're going to get to neighborhood consensus on this issue. Sorry?
Yeah, I know. I said I can understand that.
So the best solution I've been able to propose is, first off, it's very important to me that the 200 footers feel supported. I think if the 200 footers don't feel supported, then they'll potentially oppose the development. And then I think certainly the 200 footers in many respects do get the biggest vote, and then the 500 footers, and then the 1,000 footers, etc. I know that the school is concerned about the traffic on 10th Street. I know that the 10th Street neighbors are concerned about the traffic on 10th Street and in the alley. I think we should have another conversation. The best thing that I can promise is, and what we've agreed to in the CBA, is to facilitate community conversation with DDOT. I think we need to have open forum meetings with DDOT. Those will probably take place in June and July, and DDOT should hear from the different voices in the community. I'm happy to have another meeting. Look, we can have a meeting next week. That's totally fine on traffic. I don't, my guess is the idea that we're going to get to a different community agreement is low. And I say that only because there have been a lot of community conversations specific to traffic.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people have thought about it and they don't agree with each other.
Let me just plug in one idea on the alley. And you know, it's
Okay,
after
and
we should
I think
probably end this meeting.
okay,
Plastic flex posts at the end.
Commissioner
to-
Costello.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
let this be the last so we can move on. Okay.
Yeah, let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
And then I'm done, I promise. Plastic flex posts at the end of the alley, trash trucks can get over them, but you know, it's still a vertical visual obstruction for other drivers. And in response to Commissioner Amin's interruption, you're welcome to go to my website and watch the full video of the meeting that I and Commissioner Paquera had with Hanover and all of our residents and anybody else who decided to join us. And you can find the answer to your question during that video. Thank you.
Okay, you guys, it's getting late. I really, really appreciate Mr. Gordon, Hanover, you guys showing up and able to address the different ideas about the traffic safety and, you know, why it would not work and what you think will work. I mean, that I really appreciate that. I just wanted to put that out there because I know there's going to be a lot of people who want to give some input and, you know, and that is true and they should, so that you obviously have done your homework and, you know, got the engineers involved and are able to say, well, you know what, we tried that and we, you know, other people have suggested that and we just feel like that would not work. So I just wanted to thank you for that. This has been a long meeting that we have had in a while. And so I want to kind of wrap it up. Mr. Gordon, if you want to have your final say before we do the round with the commissioners, I'd appreciate if you would just keep it short.
I'll keep it very short. First off, the development process is complicated. I'm sure there have been things I've miscommunicated. We've tried to meet the community in the middle. I know I haven't given the community absolutely everything it wants. I feel like we've worked to give the community a lot to find compromises. I understand the concerns about needing another SMD meeting. If I apologize to the degree that anybody felt excluded from the process, that was not the intention. It was quite the opposite. We're trying to include everybody in the process. I can't say yes to everybody, but I certainly want everybody to feel heard, and I want to address the comments. And again, I can't say yes to everything, but I think we've said yes to a lot. I'm proud of the package we've offered. I think 15% IZ set a new high watermark in the district. We're spending millions of dollars on infrastructure. And, you know, I think there's a reason that there is a substantial chunk of the community that is now supporting the project. I ask that, you know, we have some meetings in the next week or two. I ask that the commissioners let me know what meetings they want to have. If there's a desire to have another traffic meeting, let's have another traffic meeting. I don't know that we're going to get to consensus, but let's do it. I'm totally open to it. If there's community consensus, I'd love to support that. If Commissioner Amin, you'd like to have another SMD meeting, certainly we'll make ourselves available. I would request that the ANC take up and vote on supporting the project at the ANC meeting this month. I think we've run a good process. We'll try to run a good process in the next 2 weeks. Again, apologize to anybody who's been offended. It's just not the goal. And I hope that the community and the commission support our project as we move forward with the zoning commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. With me, I'm going to go first as I am 5B01. I think it's important that even if there is a meeting notification distributed, that it's very important that even if you do it via email or just put out something on a local board or something, that the actual 200 footers are literally taken into consideration Whereas, maybe knocking on the door, get some sort of input. But I think the majority of the 200 footers should be the ones who definitely have a voice. And I think once that is determined, then I think that would make ease a lot of people's minds. I just
Commissioner Carly, I'm sorry to interrupt. Let me just say, I think we've mailed notices to
I
all
understand
of
it.
the, okay, and we will, if there's another meeting,
I
we have
understand
we have their addresses. I will
it.
commit to mailing all of the 200 footers a
Well, you've
notice.
done your part. Reaching out to the 200 footers, you've done your part. Now it's just about getting feedback from the 200 footers via the commissioner. I think, I mean, that was, you done your part. That's what you're supposed to do. Just make sure every 200 footer got a notification on what your plans are. And now the feedback should be through the commissioner from the 200 footers to say, you know what, here's my position on this project, or here's what I would like. Whatever the case may be, at least, we'll have something, the commission board will have something to say that each person that is identified as a 200 footer has actually weighed in on that project. Okay, 5B02, Commissioner Higgins.
Thank you, Chair Carly. I appreciate you guys coming on. I think this is some great dialogue this evening. But I still think there are a number of things that are on the table that still need to be discussed. And I think that we still need to, if we don't have to vote on it this month. We still had the month of June to be able to vote on it. And before your hearing, because the hearing isn't until July, and move forward from there, because we're talking about 2 weeks to address the traffic, and you said a couple of things that resonated with me. One is that the alley that you're speaking in reference to, that the neighbors that park there are not in agreement with it. And so that's a major issue. So that needs to be addressed. So I look forward to the continued discussion, and I really appreciate your time and effort this evening.
And I have one other a question I want to touch on. The alley, I noticed the number. Is that application in the surveyor's office?
It is, and that is actually more time sensitive than the PUD application. So the surveyor has issued a plat for comment to the various DC agencies and to the ANC. And if the matters were to be split so that the PUD were to be voted on separately, we would still, understanding that it's up to the commission, our request would still be that the commission vote on the alley closing and dedication this month. The alley closing and dedication is literally just saying, let's realign Reed Street, and it's a council process rather than a zoning commission process. And we're most of the way through getting comments back from utilities. And I think there is general support in the community for the realignment of Reed Street. I don't actually think, I mean, the traffic flow may be controversial, but I don't think the alignment is controversial. I have not heard anybody said do this differently. So we would still ask the commission to vote on the alley closing this month. Sorry.
And the alley was discussed in your meetings?
Every single one of our meetings, we presented an alley closing and dedication exhibit. And to be very honest with you, Chair Carly, the community and the landowner, I think, agreed on the alignment before Hanover was in the picture. I mean, we've advanced the engineering and the diligence, but we didn't actually. It probably came from some combination of owner and community feedback. But yeah, this exhibit that's now being shown, this shows existing streets, existing alleys, not just the dedication and the contribution. this exhibit has been in I think in every single presentation we've made to the community. And I think there is consensus on this. And if there's anybody who thinks I'm misrepresenting, please speak up, but nobody has commented negatively to me on the realignment of Reed Street.
And when you reached out to the 200 footers about the PUD, you also reached out to the 200 footers about the alley as well?
Yes, everybody's been noticed. Absolutely. Yes. And I don't, I mean, please, Dan Schramm, Andre, Nicole, anybody else who's on this call.
No, sir. I'm asking individually, because when you send out these group messages, it does not necessarily mean that the 200, all the 200 footers, you know, actually received. That's why I say when you reached out to the 200 footers and mailed out these notifications about this PUD, did you also reach out about the alley, you know, to say, hey, by the way, you know, this is what we plan to do with this alley?
Yes, the notification I think spoke. So Christy, if I'm not speaking correctly, please tell me, but I believe we've reached out on both the PUD and the alley closing.
Yes, I am confirming right now that it specifically says that Reed Street Alley would be realigned in order to allow the buildings to be constructed. And so that is specific in the notice that went out in mid-November of 2021 to all the 200 footers. So yes, we have certainly noticed via mail, US mail, to everybody about that.
All right, thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Commissioner Piquera.
Yeah, so actually just staying on this, I apologize, maybe it was just me. So I think I might have seen this document before, but I'll be honest and say that I thought it was part of the PUD. I did not realize this was a separate vote or something that was, and I don't know if Commissioner Amin has different documents, but I think, Dan, everything that I have from you, I just didn't realize that this was a separate vote. And I would love if you have sent information to Commissioner Amin, if you wouldn't mind forwarding that to me, because I certainly haven't seen anything about it.
So the only thing, my understanding is that the surveyor's office or DCRA has sent the plat to the commission for comment, but if that's not the case,
I have not seen that.
so then
The first time I got any information or, you know, became aware of this is when you sent an email and say, oh, and by the way, I'm going to need you guys to vote on this alley too. That was the first time I ever heard about it.
Okay, so apologies. If we didn't include it in our ANC presentation in October, I apologize. Or if we did and I didn't explain it well, I apologize for the miscommunication. We submitted this application in December, and the surveyor's office has asked the ANC for comment, and I will. Okay, so what I will do is we have sent. So the only document, Commissioner Costello, is literally the one in front of you. That's
and that's great. So basically, I think what should happen is if you reach out to them and ask them to send it to the ANC.
We can do that. We were told from the surveyor's office that it had been sent out, but I will follow up tomorrow and make sure that it is resent to you.
And see, just make sure, I'm not sure. I haven't received anything about this at all. I'm wondering if it went straight to 5B04 and maybe just didn't make it to the full commission. I don't know if Commissioner Amin has received something from the surveyor's office, but I'm looking through my email right now and I definitely have not.
So let me just say one thing about this. This area, hey, Brandon, can you zoom in on the triangle? So the areas that we showed you tonight are just very slightly different because a very small proportion of the alley that's going to be closed is actually going to WMATA and will not be coming to us as the developer. And it's that triangle right there. And
when you say it's a change from what?
I'm saying we showed you an exhibit in the presentation tonight that is just what is the developer getting and what is the developer giving.
Right.
And this survey also shows something that WMATA is going to get. Here's what we'll do. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to just circulate the plat to all 5 commissioners tonight. And then, because I know you guys want it from the surveyor's office.
Did that come through the agency?
Yeah, we didn't create that. That document was the document we just had up. This is created by DC.
No, I understand what you're saying, but something, you had to submit something to Office of Zoning, correct?
No, this application doesn't go through Office of Zoning. So
Oh, I'm sorry, from the
DC surveyors.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the surveyors, if we can get whatever was submitted to them, that would be great.
Yes, we can do that as well. It's very similar to the other document that was been in all of our presentations, is what we submitted to them, but we can put that together for the commission, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no, I'm sorry. My understanding, our understanding, and I say our, I'm saying the developer and our team, was that the whole ANC had received this plat. And I suppose perhaps Commissioner Carley, this explains my confusion. I didn't think it was controversial, so apologies for the miscommunication. We're going to send you the plat. We're going to send you the application materials. We're going to ask the surveyor's office to resend the plat to the ANC.
Yes.
And hopefully that is going to clear this up. And again, yes, I mean, this, if the PUD discussion grows complicated, PUDs are by their nature complicated. I would just ask, and I understand you guys haven't had as much time to review it. I hope that you will review this and vote on this in the next couple of weeks. The surveyor's office is waiting on it, and I really don't think I haven't the faintest idea, but Christy,
You know,
you
it's
might
not
know.
unheard of that someone who's developing in my area reach out to me and say, hey, I just wanted to, and I said, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I need it to come from the agency, and they'll reach out to the agency, CC me on and say, look, the commission has not received it, Commissioner Carley has not, and then they usually will send it out. So that's not unheard of that I haven't received it or the agency haven't sent it out yet.
We'll fix it, and I apologize.
We'll contact them tomorrow and ask them to resend it, and we'll also confirm how they're sending it to you to email that is to your email addresses, because I don't know if there's any kind of legacy system that maybe was pre-COVID.
They send it 2 ways. They send it via email, and they also send it to our office.
Okay.
So, all right, Commissioner Amin.
Yes, the plat has been sent out. The plat is DCRA sends the survey out to 5B04. To my knowledge, there's also a copy in the office. I know that no one goes into the office. I think I'm the only one that goes consistently to pick up the mail. So that information comes into the office, and it comes to 5B04. If it's not clear to the community, I prepared your folder, and when I presented it at COW, so your folder has everything in it. I presented it at COW, and when the agenda was going to make, when the item was going to make COW, it's ready to go out to you. But when in COW we decided that we were going to have this special meeting, this is why the commissioner, have not sent that survey, the resolution, and everything else out to you. It's in your folder and ready to go. It just hasn't made the agenda yet. So when it makes the agenda, I was prepared to send it out to you. If we were going to vote on it, it would have gone out tomorrow or Friday for you. So
when did you send that document? When did you upload the document to the folder?
It's to my folder, Commissioner Higgins. I put all the documents in a folder ready for the commission to review.
No, I said, so when did you get the information and upload it to your folder?
I got the information a while ago, And the reason why I say a while ago is because when I asked for an extension on it, on the vote, because it wasn't an agenda item. So I contacted a DCRA and asked them to extend the I think that it had an end of April deadline. I asked them to extend that for us.
But you did have the information, you just didn't send it to the other commissioners.
I had the information. It was sent to me, as you know. It's supposed to be sent to me. Now,
but you didn't send it to us.
And the chair. It's also the chair as well.
Well, Chair, I don't know. Did they send you a copy?
No, sir.
Okay, well, see, I mean, that's on DCRA. I don't know whether you were supposed to get an electronic copy or whether they wanted the commission to have the mail-in copy.
Let me just jump in. I think we can help fix this. So please let us help fix it.
All you need, again, just if the surveyors can send it, that would be fine, and then I'll distribute it out to the commissioners so they can have an opportunity to review it.
Chair Carly, just because I'm not. Oh, sorry, we didn't get through 5B05. Apologies. I have one more question.
I'm not even finished yet. So much has been said that I think I've even lost everything that I wanted to say. So the engagement process has been transparent and we believe very thorough in 5B04. We not only are we concerned, as former Commissioner Woodland has pointed out, not only are we concerned with the 200 footers, we have also engaged everyone within 5B04 who was open to engagement. So to my question to Commissioner Costello was that the people, this is a 5B04 project, and the 200 footers and 5B04 is the most impacted. So for your statement, when you say community members have reached out to you, my question was, and you said your video shows it, who are these people? Because it makes a difference on all accounts, from ANC to SMD to ANC to zoning, whether these people are 200 footers, Ward 5 residents, or residents of the District of Columbia. So this is why I wanted that to be clear, Commissioner, that people are weighing in. People are weighing in, and what the 200 footers want, what the 500 footers, what 5B04 residents want, is not the same thing that your constituents want in 5B05 and what Commissioner Patera in 5B03 and on the committees that you guys sit on and represent.
But just one thing, Commissioner, I mean, if this was just, a project that the 200 footers were being packed, and if it was not, a carryover, the abutting residents, traffic, even traffic in the area, the schools they're talking about, everything. I mean, it's like a dominoes effect. So it's not contained right there in 5B04. So, I understand they're weighing in. It's, everybody wants to weigh in because, again, you are asking, and I know, for great weight, and they want to weigh in on supporting this project. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every time I have to go before the board and ask you guys for support, I come with my I's dotted, my T's crossed, I give a presentation, I answer all the questions and without a problem. And when I say without a problem, I mean, I'm not taking it personally.
Oh, I'm not taking it personally, Commissioner.
Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that. I like to hear that. We're
gonna and my last comment, Commissioner.
Before we move on, are we signing checks tomorrow or Friday?
Commissioner, why don't we connect offline? Connect after me. And my last comment is that 5B04 will conduct another meeting. We probably will conduct 2 more meetings if that's been a request. I feel like the process has been thoroughly engaged and open, but if the community is asking for more meetings, we will have more meetings. We will
So-
coordinate our schedule with Hanover. And to Commissioner Costello's question, is that if you're on my mailing list, you can receive it. You will receive immediate notifications there. If you travel through Noyes Park, we post our meeting notifications there. To my knowledge, Commissioner Costello and Commissioner Piquera receive my notices. I don't know whether they open or read them. So you will have that information to share with your community.
Thank you. I don't receive them, but for residents who would like to, how can they sign up to be on your list?
Well, I put you on the list. You must have took me off, Commissioner.
I was never on it, but how do
I
I
was
know
on
that?
you on it, Commissioner, because I put you on it personally.
Commissioner, may
Okay,
I
I've
ask
nev-
this question?
Yeah,
I
I've never gotten
understand
your
you're
email.
having a meeting or have had meetings with Hanover. My question is this: after you've had these meetings with the developers, have you had meetings with just you and your constituents?
Yes, Commissioner Colley. I think we've gone over this several times. Yes.
And you said you wasn't taking this personally, correct?
I think that you just misread my tone, Commissioner, and I'm sorry for that.
I never asked you that question, Commissioner. It's only yes or no.
You asked it to me in Cal, Commissioner, and the answer is yes. The answer is yes. The answer is yes, Commissioner Colley.
So is it possible when you have a meeting, you have them reach out, whether you invite them or not, but reach out at least to the 200 footers and get some sort of feedback from the 200 footers?
We have gotten plenty. We have always reached out to the 200 footers, and we will continue.
Okay, thank you. And would you come back and let us know who those 200 footers were?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Because I know that's what I do. I come back with a sheet with 200 footers, yes, no, and signatures. I'm just letting you know. That's what I do.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your process, Commissioner Colley.
5B045. Commissioner Costello.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I really don't have anything else to add. I just want to thank you for chairing. You've done a great job. Thank you to my colleagues and for Dan, Brandon, Christy, and others at Hanover and Associated Law Firm. Thanks for taking the time to answer all of our questions. I did just put one last question from my colleague, Commissioner Amin, in the chat. It's very basic. Forget about me. I'm not on your email list. I don't know if I ever was, but it doesn't matter. All I wanted to know was for your residents, how they can sign up to your email list so they can get notifications about your meetings. You don't need to worry about me. I just want this information out there so they're aware of how to get on your list. That's all. If you don't mind sharing, that would be great. Thank you.
Can I ask just a question or two? Just Commissioner Chair Carly.
Yeah.
For planning purposes, can we be on the agenda for the 25th and maybe you guys vote, maybe you don't, but can you add us to the agenda and hopefully at least we can address I mean, look, I would love to address both, but hopefully at least we can address the alley closing at the minimum.
I'm not sure. I do not have my notes in front of me from the Cal meeting, but I do believe there is a concerned citizen section that if you can't make the agenda, I mean, there's still that option.
Sorry, you're saying.
And I'm not sure because we've had our Cal meeting for the month, and I wanted to have you attend our meeting at the end of the month, but we decided or the majority decided that this would be a better venue before we host our meeting at the end of the month, so it would not eat up the time because I'm pretty rigid or the commission is pretty rigid about their time and we can kind of stick to the schedule. So they wanted to have you as a guest speaker during the special meeting. But I don't see a problem with you attending, even if you don't make the agenda. And there's still that 20 minutes where the residents can ask questions and you can address those questions.
My hope is that we can get to a vote again, at least on the alley closing in May.
I know.
And My understanding is the agenda gets published a week before the meeting. Is it not possible to put us on the agenda for this month?
I wanted to host you at the end of the month, but we had a vote and they decided to have a special meeting. And this is that special meeting as opposed to hosting you at the end of the month. We discussed what's going to go on the agenda during our CAL meeting, which we've already had the first Wednesday of the month. If you want to come to the meeting at the end of the month, that's fine. There is an opportunity for people to ask questions and you can respond to those questions. If your concerns is about not, being able to address all the issues that the residents have about that alley.
If I address the commission during the concerned citizen section, can the commission vote?
I'm not even sure that was one of the items that came up during the CAL meeting. Commissioner Amin, was it?
Pardon me, Commissioner, what is your question?
Was that one of the items that came up during our CAL meeting?
What item that Hanover would be on the agenda?
No, sir, the alley.
Yes, that did come up. It was two resolutions. One was for the alley closing realignment, and the other was for the PUD. And they were all supposed to be both the topics for the special meeting tonight.
I think my question is, was that item asked to be on the agenda?
Yes.
Because I have my notes and I don't remember that being one. As a matter of fact, that wasn't even discussed.
Commissioner Colley, it was on the agenda. I said I have two resolutions. One was the alley closer, one was the PUD, and then we went into conversation, and this is how we decided to have the special meeting. We can roll the tape if we need to.
We'll discuss that later.
Okay, well, we can roll the tape for the community if we need to.
If you want to go ahead and take your time and do that, you can.
No, I'm not talking. I'm not tonight. I mean, just for people that want to know.
Commissioner Amin will be in touch with you.
I would ask the commissioners, if there was something that we were supposed to do, and we failed to do it, I certainly apologize for that. I don't believe that the alley closing is controversial in this community. And if that's wrong and the ANC commissioners don't agree with that, then by all means, please let me know that. But if it's not controversial, I would ask Chair Carly for an exception, and that you put the alley closing on the agenda for.
We have not received the information for that alley.
You'll have it tomorrow.
Commissioner Carly, when I asked to put it on the agenda, we decided that we would have a special meeting first. I told you I have the information. It was ready to go. It wasn't on the agenda. I had no reason to send it out to the commission. We do not have a precedent. We send once you make the agenda and we know what's on the agenda after we submit it, we send it out. We also know that we discuss things in CAL and they don't make the agenda. You come back after your research and they just don't make the agenda.
Commissioner Amin, survey, something from the surveyors, you could have sent that to us anytime.
Commissioner, it was ready to go to you. I asked to put it on the agenda. You said let's have a special meeting. So now you're here in a special meeting saying something totally different. I want that to be clear.
I'm not saying anything totally different. You know for a fact that you send the information. You know I'll look up to see whether or not confirm everything and decide whether or not it goes on the agenda. You never gave up any information about that alley.
Commissioner, come on.
Commissioner Amin, You did not give up any information about that alley.
Commissioner, because it's not a agenda item. If it was not going to make the May agenda, you would have seen it when you said that it was on the agenda. It was ready to go, just like the information on the PUD. Everything was ready. You said, let's have a special meeting.
I did not say that. Just say what? Just explain it.
The board decided to have a special meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
The board
Clarify that,
decided to have a
because I
special
know what
meeting.
I said, and then I asked for a vote and asked for feedback, and that's what I got. I'm not going to keep going back and forth. It's 10 o'clock, Commissioner. You want to discuss this tomorrow, we can. But I'm not going to keep going back and forth with you tonight.
So,
And everyone had an opportunity to talk. Mr. Gordon, I heard you. Seriously, I heard everything you had to say. I understand, what you want and what you would like to, for the commission board to do. I understand. I heard you. I just want to make that clear. I heard you. I understand that. Commissioner, we'll talk tomorrow.
Sure.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.